John Carpenter's The Thing was released in 1982 and was a box office flop and took a critical mauling. Since then, it's grown in stature to be regarded as a modern classic, one of the great movie remakes, and helped cement Carpenter's position as the master of horror. My name is John, and I'm here with Westy.
I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, and when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch!
And Matt.
I said, watch clock.
Cut us loose, damn it. All the right movies are talking Carpenter, Russell, and Morricone. Why don't we just wait here for a little while? See what happens. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, a shape-shifting chariot of the pods on classic and hit films.
You dug that one out, didn't you?
Oh, that's the best bit, to be honest.
Yeah, really obscure.
Today, and finally, we're talking about a film that came close quite a few times in our polls and at last managed to win one. We're waxing lyrical about the master of horror, Kurt Russell, and out there special effects to bring you the making of story behind John Carpenter's science fiction horror classic, The Thing.
Yep. Sure are.
Been some time coming, this one, I think, hasn't it?
Massively.
It has, yep.
Before we get into it though, a quick mention as ever of Patreon. If you like what we do on our regular podcast like this and would like us to keep on doing it, please help support us do that by becoming an All the Right Movies patron. Patrons also gain access to bonus podcast episodes and access to our full archive of classic episodes, such as the one that you're listening to now. The archive is getting bigger week on week, and right now there's over 30 extra episodes in there and about 40 bonus episodes in Patreon as well, so that's a lot of podcasting to get stuck into.
Yep, so
really
it's about 27,000 hours. And if you get that reference, then good for you.
Yeah, you're listening to the right podcast.
Yes, you are.
So to find out more and sign up, please visit patreon.com/all the right movies. Back to the Antarctic now though, as Kurt Russell and co are being hunted by a weird killer alien. So why do we want to talk about The Thing? Westy?
Well, I mean, come on. This is so exciting. This is so exciting. There's so much in this film. It's so good. In just how, confident it is and how accessible it is and then how fucking terrifying it is, but how stupidly over the top it is, but at the same time you don't question it really. You're just in there. You're in that world. There's 12 different characters and you know them all. It's one of them films that's the ultimate film that you've had a night out and you've got a kebab and you've still got a can in the fridge and you're like, I'm just going to have my kebab and I put the fucking thing on and you're just like, yes.
Best night ever.
It is the best night. It's probably better than the night out. So you might as well just watch the thing twice.
Almost certainly.
That's how good it is. I absolutely love it. I know Matt loves it. I know you love it, John. So I'm very excited to talk about it. There's lots and lots and lots to get into.
Yeah, well, I came to this one pretty late, to be honest. I didn't see it as a teenager, like a lot of people probably do. I was well into my 20s when I first saw The Thing, but science fiction, action, horror film, that's obviously right up my street, and I was a fan from the very first watch. I like John Carpenter, I think we all do here, and it's good to be talking about him again after covering Halloween a while ago.
Yeah.
We've also got Kurt Russell in the lead, Ennio Morricone providing the score, so some big names to chat about, and the special effects work on display here. All practically, obviously, it's 1982.
Yeah.
It's just bonkers.
It's outrageous.
Absolutely crazy. So I can't wait to get into that. And there's theory after theory out there about just about every aspect of The Thing. That final scene especially. I'm sure you've got a few up your sleeve as well, Westy.
Yep, I've got 97.
So I want to hear about all of that as well.
All 97. I'm not doing all 97.
Quite a lot to get through, but we should have a lot of fun doing it, hopefully.
Definitely.
And Matt?
Because I've just never shut up talking about it since my first viewing. It's
Here you go.
I really haven't. Anyone who knows me knows how important this film is for me. It did literally change everything. This film was like my gateway drug into cinema. I can still it was, because I can still vividly remember the first time I saw it. My parents had gone out. My sister was in charge. She let me watch it. And I just remember still lying in bed that night just thinking about it, not even scared or freaked out, just thinking about what I'd seen. It had just blown my mind.
Did you have a kebab?
Sadly not. She wouldn't let me have a kebab.
Would you let you watch a thing?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Priorities. Ridiculous, isn't it? But ever since then, I've been obsessed with it. If I went to friends' houses, this is the film I'd bring along and make us watch it. If friends came over to my house, this is the film I'd make everyone watch. Like, if they hadn't seen it before, it's like, oh, you're in for a treat.
Yeah. Is that why you've only got 5 friends and we're
pretty much alienated everyone by making them watch this over and over again?
I'm the same. It's amazing, isn't it? Separates the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. If you can't, cope with that, you don't deserve to be my friend, quite frankly. But it's also the film I've owned the most copies of. I taped it off the telly. I pestered me parents to get me on VHS. When DVDs came along, this was probably the first film I upgraded to. And then when I was 30, I was given a Blu-ray player for me present, and I had a party. And Westy bought me this on Blu-ray for my 30th birthday. You did? Yeah.
I was going to get you the laser disc, but I thought that's taking the piss.
Can't play it. So it's fair to say this film is quite important to me.
Yeah. Great. So The Thing was produced by the Terman Foster Company, distributed by Universal, and released on June the 25th, 1982. Filmed in LA, British Columbia and Alaska. It was directed by John Carpenter, written by Bill Lancaster, and in the main cast, Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, T.K. Carter, David Clennon, Keith David, Richard Dysart, Charles Hallahan, Peter Maloney, Richard Masur, Donald Moffat, Joel Polis, and Thomas Waits.
Big cast.
We're not going to talk about the cast in detail. Don't worry about that.
You just have.
Yeah.
That's it. So, shall we get into the movie then?
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Okay, up next, you've got to be fucking kidding. We're talking the beginning of The Thing.
Oh, first goddamn week of winter.
The beginning.
The film opens with the iconic title appearing on screen and an out-of-control flying saucer crashing down to Earth. Is it a good way to pull us in?
I love how it's only in retrospect that you realise that this bit with the UFO is happening thousands upon thousands of years ago.
Yeah, the opening titles mimic those used in The Thing for Another World from 1951, the film this is a remake of. The logo was placed behind a smoke-filled fish tank covered with a plastic bag. The bag was then ignited, and that creates the effect of the title burning onto the screen, which looks fantastic.
It's probably my favourite title that isn't yellow.
Wow, high praise.
Yeah,
imagine if it was.
Yeah, but if that was yellow and that had burned in, that would be it. End of days, amazing. But yeah, it's fucking fantastic.
After the iconic logo title and careering flying saucer, we're right into it. Carpenter sets the story going pretty quickly, and we've got a couple of big scenes to talk about in the beginning of the movie. The famously gruesome moment The Thing reveals itself in a cramped dog kennel is up for discussion, but to start us off, we're looking at the first minutes of the film, where the dog in question comes into possession of the team of Antarctic scientists.
Sounds good.
Not for them.
So we open in the bleak Antarctic wasteland as a dog is being pursued and shot at by Norwegians in a helicopter. This scene brings us character intros, spoilers in Norwegian, shameless product placement for J&B Scotch, and the smuggest computer chess grandmaster ever seen on film.
Yeah.
An intriguing way to start things off, I think.
I think it's amazing because we are immediately confused. Because why are you shooting at this amazing dog? Like, leave him alone. Every time I see it, I'm fucking furious. I'm like, leave him alone. And it's just such a great setup because they're just so focused on this one thing. But you get that Morricone score, you get that bum bum, bum bum, and it just you expect it to kind of explode into something, but it's just this dog, and that dog honestly is perfect. Probably the best dog I've ever seen on screen. It's absolutely perfect, and its persona, its attitude is just absolutely perfect. Runs when it needs to. It scarpers underneath the helicopter at one point, like that's fucking ridiculous. And then when he finally lands and he's just screaming in Norwegian, you don't know what's happening. There's no subtitles, which again I think is fantastic. But then Gary's straight out of there, and he's a great shot. Just one shot, boom, straight out, headshot from a revolver from a window in the Antarctic.
Kill shot.
Love it. Yeah, absolute kill shot. But I just think it's really, really great. The one thing I can't get over is how bad this guy is at throwing hand grenades. Is he like is he Norman Wisdom or something? He's just like straight away, oh shit, all the other stuff, and then that blows up, the helicopter blows up. But it's great because you're thrown into it and you just think, well, there's so much confusion and there's so much that you're trying to grasp that you can't grasp because everything's just so outside of your thought process. Like, why are they shooting at this dog? Why can't he throw a grenade properly? Why are they so scared? Why are they so confused? Why is he from Norway? What the fuck's going on? And you're just immediately in this riddle, and it's the paranoia, and you dropped straight into the paranoia. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love Morricone's heartbeat score at the start as well. I mean, who doesn't? Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And that image of the dog being chased through the snow by a helicopter is a great way to start a movie. It's really memorable, and like you say, Westy, it's confusing, has you intrigued about what's actually going on straight away from the first shots. Yeah. I think my favourite thing about this whole intro, though, is the confrontation between the American scientists and the Norwegian scientists who've been chasing the dog, which ends in Gary, like you say, Westy, shooting the Norwegian scientist dead. Mm-hmm. What I like about this is that the Norwegian scientist is shouting at the Americans in Norwegian, but obviously they can't understand him. Yeah. If you know your Norwegian, though, he basically lays out the entire film for you. So in Norwegian he says, "Get the hell out of there, that's not a dog, it's some sort of thing, it's imitating a dog, it isn't real, get away you idiots." And that's when they shoot him.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a really good intro with the score, the memorable opening shots, and Carpenter sets up this as a mystery which has the audience, and certainly me, intrigued right from the start. Unless you speak Norwegian, then you know what's going to happen.
That's why it bombed in Norway. You just walk out after the first 7 minutes.
All right, thanks, see you later then.
All right, cheers, yeah. It's a thing, is it? No worries.
It's excellent, and it's the bleakness of it that I love. I've always had a real liking for any film that's set in some kind of Arctic setting. I just find it really evocative, and it just automatically gives it so much atmosphere. And I'm pretty sure this is obviously where that started, because it's just the sheer desolation of that landscape in those opening shots. There's no escaping it. It just stretches on forever. There's no horizon. You just can't get away from it, and then combine that with that pulsing heartbeat music over the top of that you two both mentioned, and it's just so good. And yeah, like you guys says, it's the questions this film's thrown up. You know, why are they chasing the dog? Why are they trying to kill it? What's it got to do with the UFO I've just seen? How is this going to come together? It's so fascinating how they do that.
The amazing thing about the Antarctic landscape as well is that it's probably the biggest landscape you could shoot, but still feel claustrophobic.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, that's the whole film, isn't it? You know, in some ways it's wide open, but you just still can't get away from it. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic opening, and I just love that little touch though when Bennons gets shot and he just uses as an opportunity, sort of like necking McCready's whiskey.
So it seems that we like what we got here as an opening, but it could have been quite a lot different as the script changed drastically. Have you heard how it opened originally?
No.
So I think you might like this, Westy.
Okay.
The idea originally was that the helicopter pilot would lose control, the helicopter would spin uncontrollably and then disappear behind a mountain, and would hear a big explosion. Then the lone survivor of the crash would appear from behind the mountain, on fire, and chase the dog into the American camp. And Carpenter scrapped the whole thing because he thought it was, in his words, cliche after cliche. I mean, it does sound way over the top, but I know you love a flaming intro to a film, Westy, so I thought it might be all up for
I thought you'd be like, the survivor comes over the top of the mountain and it's Indiana Jones. with the dog in a whip. Done. Yeah, I'd love that. No, I love anything. I love anything on fire. I'm a big fan.
So, not a huge action intro to the thing, especially after that initial start was changed, but a good setup to the main characters, and I think it gives us a pretty intriguing premise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
From there, and after discovering a bloodbath at the Norwegian camp, things take a turn for the worse for the team. Mm-hmm. After the dog's put into a kennel crammed with other canines, all hell breaks loose, basically. In this scene, we see maybe the greatest dog actor in history. McCready bust out the flamethrower for the first, but certainly not the last time, and outrageous visual effects as the thing reveals itself.
Yep.
Absolute madness, this, isn't it?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, Carpenter here in this scene, he breaks one of the great unwritten rules of cinema, which is you never kill the dog unless you want to make people cry. And here, he really kills the dog, and not just one of them. You know, he kills a fair few. He's just not holding back straight away. You think, okay, right, this is what this film's going to be like. There's going to be nothing subtle about this film. You're just straight in there, because you know there's something not quite right about this dog from those early scenes of it just prowling around. And this just absolutely delivers when you find out exactly what it is. but you also can't quite get a handle on it either, which I love. You know, it does start off looking like a dog, but then it's got tentacles, and then it's got these like massive claws, and then it's just like a big, massive, writhing flesh with an eye, and then that bit that shoots out towards Childs, that looks almost plant-like. Yeah. So you just watch this thing and what the fuck am I actually looking at? I think it's incredible. And there's just loads of little details that linger for me, though, when I think about this scene. Like the howling of the wind outside before the dog turns.
Yeah.
And it ends on such an ominous note with all those characters just staring at that smoke and ruin of what's left of it and trying to work out what the hell it is. But I do always struggle because this scene just makes me think, you know what, for this like isolated Antarctic base, they've got a hell of a lot of weapons there. Like loads of rifles and flamethrowers just lying around.
Yeah.
That dog. He's the best actor in the film, that dog.
Easily. Yeah.
Spooky as hell the way he's just staring when he first goes into the kennel. I love it. In real life, the dog was actually called Jed. Yeah. And Carpenter said most of Jed's scenes took 3 or 4 takes, which is less than all of the actors.
Not surprised.
But as good as Jed is, when I think of this sequence, it's all about that transformation for me. It's gruesome, it's weird, I've not seen anything else quite like it. It's outrageous in the best possible way. The way the other dogs all start barking at the thing before it does anything is great setup. I love how 2 of the dogs just scarp out the door the first chance to get, like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
Yeah, just jump
and when the thing's dog head just suddenly splits open from nowhere, it's fantastic. Carpenter's got one of the greats of Morricone for musical support here, but he barely uses them. There's almost no music in the scene because Carpenter knows it doesn't need it. The visuals, nobody's forgetting those in a hurry, so he leans on that instead of the score, and it all just works superbly. It's maybe not the best or the most suspenseful scene in the film, but I think it might have the most memorable imagery in the whole film in this one.
Yeah, I see loads of influence from this scene. I don't think I'd seen much like it before, but just the confidence with the special effects work, just that it is all practical, and I think everyone just looked at it and thought, you know what, this looks fucking amazing. Like, there's no part of this that we can't shoot. And when that dog's head splits open and you reveal that thing beneath it, and I'm always confused about this film, and this is the main thing that I'm going to bring up, is that what is the thing? No one actually... Is it just a cell that floats around and lands on something? Is it just a tiny, tiny little thing?
Yeah.
Did that thing that crashed in the ice, was that an alien that the thing had infected and then it died and it's now part of its cell build-up?
It doesn't really explain in detail how it works, does it?
No, not at all. But so this is like, well, why is that dog actually splitting and then becoming more dogs? Why don't you just be that dog and just be all right? Like, oh, this will be fine. I'll fuck off eventually.
Yeah.
The other dogs were kind of hostile towards it, so I can see why it splits off and starts attacking them. Then okay. But he could have just gone in with a little less of an attitude, and he would have been absolutely fine. Don't just slink in there, fucking start snarling at people. Like, is everything all right? No, just go in the corner and chill out, and then this might not have happened.
Plunks itself right in the middle of the kennel, doesn't it?
Yeah. Right
like
down, right. I'm part of this, and it's surveying everything, but you're just on edge with it. I think the sound design's incredible. I think the way this is shot is really, really good. I think Dean Cundey really pulls it out the bag here. It's all lit by torchlight. Reminds me of Seven in some instances. Reminds me of Silence of the Lambs in some instances. What I'm going to try and do is break the record for the word disgusting. I think we said it in the Texas Chainsaw episode, so I'm going to try and break it here, but this is fucking disgusting. It is. It just, everything you don't want to see. It's a spider-like form. It's got spraying out some kind of like jet of water, some fluid. I don't want to see fluid. I don't want to see spider-like things. I don't want to see like little fucking things slipping across the ground. It's like when you tip over the seafood section at Morrison's or something and it just spills on the floor and you pour blood on it. Fucking disgusting.
What, you don't
do that often, do you?
Never again. Squid all over.
So we've all mentioned the extraordinary effects work that we see in this scene. I mean, how can you not?
No.
And the special effects supervisor on the film was Rob Bottin, but he actually didn't have all that much to do with this particular sequence. It was, though, overseen by another special effects giant, someone we talked about quite a lot. Do you know who that was?
Big Stan Winston?
Yeah, Stan.
It was Stan Winston. So Rob Bottin just came from working on The Howling, a werewolf horror movie, and he said, "If I have to do another stinking mechanical dog, I'll go nuts. I didn't care if it was mutated. I didn't care if it was riding a skateboard. No more dogs."
Imagine that sort of thing. A skateboard in there. No need.
Getting chased by the helicopter on a skateboard.
Fucking great. Start the Back to the Future. Power of Love playing over the top.
Well, that'll improve anything. So Bottin contacted Stan Winston, and he and his team came on board to help out for this sequence. The dog was basically a puppet that one of Winston's guys operated, and the moments where the tentacles shoot out of the thing and wrap around the other dogs was done with reverse photography. So it was shot where the puppeteer would pull the tentacles back into the thing.
Right.
Then this would reverse for the film, so it looks like they're shooting out. Especially at the moment that the dog's head opens up, I think we all mentioned it. It's like a flower, but every petal is a dog's tongue, and they're surrounded by rows of dog's teeth. Absolutely disgusting, to use your word, Westy.
Yeah, but brilliant. What a level of focus to like that attention to detail. It's like it's all made from a dog's tongue and it's dog's teeth.
Yeah. That dog, though, one thing that I do love about it, you have that scene where it's just trotting down the corridor and it goes to someone's room, you see that silhouette turn around because someone's in the room and it looks at it, and then it just fades to black, which I think is an amazing edit. I love it. I love it. And that's obviously how that person becomes infected, and it's one of the great mysteries of the film because we don't know who it is. It's either going to be Norris or Palmer, and it does look like it could be either one of them, so he's got curly hair. But to add to the mystery, Carpenter actually used an extra for the shadow to sit in that room and create that silhouette, so it's a mystery in the film that can never be answered because it's an extra in there.
Ah, right. I'm glad you told me that, because every time I watch the thing, I'm like, who is that?
Is
Proper
that
studying
Norris?
it.
I want to say it's Norris. But you know who it actually is? It's Dick Warlock, who was a stunt coordinator on the film, and he actually played Michael Myers in Halloween 2.
Wow, really?
Okay.
So if you want to know who's the first infected, it's Dick Warlock from Halloween 2. There's also a really good story about the sound design in the kennel scene, which I mentioned earlier. So in order to get the sound of the dogs barking frantically, the sound designer, a guy called Colin Mowat, rounded up loads of stray dogs and put them in his house. Imagine that for a start. Then he dressed in a trench coat and then walked around the outside of the house just tapping on the window just to piss them off. Like, why a trench coat and then go outside?
Why the trench coat? If the dogs are going to be like, shit, who's out in the trench coat?
Like a trench coat and a top hat with a pipe. Just be like, hello.
Imagine being his neighbour. What the fuck's he doing? What's he doing all those dogs?
For as strange as that story is, it really fucking worked.
It did work.
It does, to be fair, yeah.
So it's a relatively slow start in some ways in the thing. Carpenter sets up the mystery with that opening and then ramps up the intrigue at the Norwegian camp before releasing the tension in an explosion of blood, dog tongues and fire. This is where the paranoia starts, right?
Oh yeah, don't trust anyone.
I'm all very tired.
The director.
The director of John Carpenter's The Thing is, unsurprisingly, John Carpenter. He'd already built quite the name for himself by this point by directing low-budget cult classics like Assault on Precinct 13, The Fog and Escape from New York, and one of the most influential horror films ever in Halloween. The Thing was a big step up, though, in terms of both expectations and production budget, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, massively.
Yeah, we nearly didn't get him though, because the producers, they did want him. That's Lawrence Terman and David Foster. But Universal wanted Toby Hooper instead because he was under contract to them already. And obviously off the back of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which does make sense to be fair. And Hooper did get as far as submitting 2 drafts of the screenplay, but Universal didn't like either of them. So they let Terman and Foster go back to Carpenter for the first choice. And that's how he ended up with the gig.
Yeah, I've read about Toby Hooper's version, and it would have been very different from what we got from Carpenter. Have you heard about that?
No. Is it even more disgusting?
No, it's not. It's less disgusting, which I'm not happy about.
Really?
Well, firstly, the alien in Hooper's version did not shapeshift or assimilate hosts. It just ate them. So that alone, straight away, it's completely different.
Yeah.
That's more disgusting.
The main character was called the Captain, and the film was about his obsessive mission to find and kill the Thing, which sounds very Captain Ahab Moby Dick to me.
Yeah.
And tonally, get this, Hooper wanted his film to be a horror comedy with loads of slapstick humour.
Right.
Slapstick humour.
Yeah, I've not read those drafts, but apparently there was a scene in there where a character gets caught by the Thing after literally slipping up on a banana skin.
Oh, that's amazing. Does he eat the banana skin as well?
Assimilate it.
Yeah. I ate the banana first, left the skin out there. I'll have you.
And Lawrence Terman, the producer who Matt mentioned there, said it would have been one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
No.
So, disaster averted, Toby Hooper was out and John Carpenter was in. With that said, how do I like Carpenter's work as the director of The Thing?
I think Carpenter's absolutely perfect for this. And the level of his career that he's in, I think he's confident enough to give it a little bit of space, give it ambiguity, give it a little bit of, a slower pace to everything that he's done. I mean, Escape from New York's like 1,000 miles an hour. Assault on Precinct 13 is 1,000 miles an hour. Even Halloween, for its slow burn, it's still quite a fast-paced film. This is just, it gives the audience that space and that time, and he gets to explore a lot more characters than he has done before. And I think it shows how good of a director he is working with actors and giving them their space to do what they need to do. And what he does so well, and what really pisses me off, is that he opens this film up to about 1,000 different theories, and he's fine with that. He's just fine with it. He's like, that's all right, that's cool. Even the matte paintings are massive and huge, but he never makes it feel huge. He makes it feel like, this is in your front room and it's right with you all the time. And I think that's why it was such a success later. I think when people got it on VHS or people got it and they watched it in the house, they just felt like, I can't escape this. And Carpenter does that so he does the claustrophobia so well. You see it in Halloween, you see it in Assault on Precinct 13, and he can do it with aplomb, and he absolutely nails it here. I think it's probably one of his best films.
Yeah, I think all of us know the right movies like John Carpenter to varying degrees. I like Escape from New York and Assault on Precinct 13, and with the massive impact Halloween made on horror, you can still see its influence loud and clear today, I think, in cinema. I think it's really easy to make a case for Halloween being his best film, certainly his most important. But Carpenter himself says The Thing is his favourite film of his, and I agree with him. I mean, if it's good enough for JC, it's definitely good enough for me. This is the one where, like most classic films, but maybe for the first time for Carpenter, he has loads of talent that he can direct and lean on. He's got a strong cast and he gets performances from them. One of Kurt Russell's best performances for me. He brings in Rob Bottin to supervise the visual effects, and he did an astonishing job that we'll talk about more. He gets one of the great composers. You mentioned there, Westy, Ennio Morricone, and he comes up with some fantastic music. And what's impressive is that Carpenter's working with all these big talents, but The Thing still feels like a Carpenter film. It's still got the distinct visual flair his best stuff tends to have. We'll talk about that more when we discuss the DP, Dean Cundy. But the way the camera moves and certain shots in the film, it feels to me like it's definitely made by the same guy who did Halloween when I watch it. A criticism I have is that this is Carpenter's first time working with a decent sized budget. On a film like this with a big budget, there's going to be action, and it needs to be impressive and spectacular when it comes. And I think compared to the other big action director names, Carpenter is found sometimes a bit wanting here for me. I think the big action sequence comes right at the end, where McCready takes on the Thing in a one-on-one fight. It's basically the same sequence, or the same idea as the end of Aliens, where Ripley fights the alien queen, but the difference in quality between them, it's just massive. Iron Jim shows Carpenter how it's done, for me. He isn't known as the master of action or Carpenter, he's known as the master of horror and all that stuff, the tension building, the palpable paranoia you can feel, the horrific moments when the Thing attacks people, all fantastic, all orchestrated by Carpenter. So in all, he did a brilliant job on the whole for me.
Yeah, his work here, it feels like he's honed and he's refined his craft to the best he can possibly be from everything he's done before. So it's like he takes that incredible camera work from Halloween, but Halloween is occasionally slackly paced. This isn't. This is paced perfectly. Or it's like The Fog, which I like a lot, but it's got a few cheesy moments in there. It's got a few cheesy jump scares. This has none of that. Nothing here feels cheap or cliched. And in terms of tension, it's like Carpenter from the very first frame. He's got his hand like around the throat of the audience and he just doesn't let go. And his control of that tension is just exceptional. And as well as creating all that, I think like some of his visual composition here is so effective. Like one of the touches that I really love is how low down he has a lot of these shots, so the ceiling is always in view. And that to me, that contributes to the claustrophobia of the film because there's no way out. You've got these long corridors that stretch away into darkness, and then you've got the ceiling hemming you in as well. So you literally cannot escape from this film.
And them corridors are all cluttered and there's barrels everywhere and there's not a straight line out anyway, is there?
No, there's not. And you have no idea where any of them lead to either. There's no sense of saying, all right, if you go down there, you're going to be okay, you'll get out. He gives you no sense of that, and it's almost subliminal how he does it. And I love how he varies his camera work here as well, because he either has it prowling those corridors like the dog does, or he sets it down and it just looks at the characters, because for all the insanity that's going on in this film, his direction is actually very patient It's very patient at times, and really that's what gives the film that paranoia, the feeling that something is watching you, because the camera is doing exactly that. And I think that all feeds into this unnerving atmosphere that the film has, that the whole film is soaked in. And bearing all that in mind, it's no wonder that when this film flopped, like critically and commercially, that it just knocked his confidence. Because can you imagine him looking at like the final edit of this and thinking, holy shit, I've nailed this from beginning to end. This is absolutely the best thing I've ever done. And then everyone just turns around and says, well, that was shit.
Yeah.
What did you waste your time on for? That was absolutely terrible, you know. So it's no wonder he lost his confidence, because he put so much into it. And I think for me, this is just career best stuff from him. I think it's absolutely exceptional, his work here.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about their Carpenter getting performances from the cast, and he does have a reputation, unlike some directors, for being pretty easygoing on set, which is nice. There's a story from The Thing I like that illustrates that, where Richard Mazur, David Clennon and Thomas Waits, who played Clark Palmer in Windows, had an idea about doing a scene where Palmer and Windows would conspire against the other scientists. Carpenter didn't like the idea at all, so said no, and the three actors went into another room and began cursing Carpenter. Unknown to them, the mics were still on, but he could hear them. So Clennon said John was great about it. He came in and said, I heard what you guys said, and my reasons for not wanting to do the scene still stand. You're right though, I am a prick.
He does usually come across really well in interviews and commentaries.
He does, yeah.
Unsurprisingly, since the film was so derided on its release, John Carpenter received no big award recognition for The Thing. I'm not sure I can think of another film whose reputation has grown quite so dramatically over time, though. Nowadays, The Thing is regarded as a science fiction and horror classic, and right up there among Carpenter's best work.
Yeah, definitely.
The cast.
The cast of The Thing has an ensemble feel, young and experienced actors, a few wise old heads in there, and one bona fide movie star. The cast list's too big to cover them all in detail, unfortunately, so we're going to talk about some of our favourites, and firstly, we're talking in detail about that movie star, Kurt Russell, as what turns out to be the main character, MacReady.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
So Kurt Russell is R.J. MacReady. Starting out as a whiskey-swilling, battle-losing computer chess helicopter pilot, he slowly takes control of the situation when the Thing strikes, ending up defeating it, supposedly, in a one-on-one fight at the end of the film. He doesn't trust anybody, and he's very tired. How do we like MacReady and Kurt Russell playing him? Matt?
Oh, I absolutely love this performance. I think it's fantastic. And I think it's obvious that Carpenter grew up watching actors like John Wayne and Gary Cooper, Charles Bronson, all those guys who were like the strong but silent types. You know, the type of actors that didn't need reams of dialogue to get across how tough they are. And I think Russell absolutely belongs to that lineage of actors. And I think that's why Carpenter went to him again and again, because they were just so on the same wavelength. But what I find interesting about MacReady, though, he's just not your typical macho 80s hero. He doesn't really do quips. He doesn't do one-liners. He's a misanthropic alcoholic who doesn't trust anyone, and he doesn't actually want to save anyone else. Like, if he can, that's a bonus. But all he really cares about is saving himself and making sure he destroys the Thing, and not even necessarily in that order. And I think Russell just has that aura to him. He has that like inner intensity that he can just bring out, and he does that, and he brings out all of MacReady's flaws and attributes, like when he says he's going to shoot Childs if Childs continues to challenge him. Yeah, actually, you completely believe he will do that to get what he needs to do. And I think MacReady in general, he's a very, very damaged guy, and that makes it all the more kind of darkly funny that he's our hero in this. And Russell, I just find him perfect casting for that, because he's really brave as an actor. He embraces all the darkness, he embraces all the edges, he doesn't try to dilute it for 1 second, and there's a real sense that he doesn't give a shit how unlikable MacReady is, because he's just got that sheer commanding presence that means you're going to follow him anyway. I think it's a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I said earlier on this episode that I think this is one of Kurt Russell's best performances, and I still think that 10 minutes later. I think if at the time you'd said to somebody watching this film that one of the cast were going to be an A-list movie star, it's only going to be one person. And it ain't Wilfred Brimley. Russell's the cast member who brings movie star quality to the film from top to bottom. Firstly, he looks cool as hell. That hair, that beard, those sunnies, that jacket. Wonderful stuff. Absolutely wonderful. I know that Russell went quite method. It took him a year to grow that hair and beard. It was worth every minute of that year because he looks incredible.
Absolutely.
I don't think he's a great actor necessarily, Kurt Russell, but he's a very good actor and always brings charisma and a likeable alpha male persona that he does better than most, I think, and that's pretty much what we get from him here. He did add some other small elements to the character that I find interesting as well. He would take a drag on a cigarette just before John Carpenter showed action in certain scenes to make his breath more visible in the Antarctic conditions. And the scene where McCready and Copper go to visit the Norwegian camp, when the helicopter took off, the pilot turned the controls over to Russell for a little bit, and if you watch in the film, you can see the helicopter wobble a little bit when Russell takes the controls. So overall, I wouldn't necessarily call it a great acting performance from Russell, maybe, but it's not that kind of role. As a lead in a science fiction horror film, bringing that star quality that the film needs, he's just perfect as McCready, and he looks fucking great.
Yeah, that was gonna be my line. It's like, does his hair ever look better than this? He's just so fucking brilliant.
Definitely not.
He is. He's just like, you know, he's flawed from the first time you see him. And there's that one computer is built just to play chess, just to make that game accessible. And he fucks it up straight away. He's like, I've had enough of this, cheating bitch. And you're like, all right, okay, fair enough. And he's putting ice into his glass, and you're just like, okay, right, but this guy's flawed, but he's the pilot, so he's got to be in tune with what's going on, but you follow him 100%. And the great thing about his performance is that you're so behind him that you never, ever, ever question the fact that he might be the thing. You always kind of go, nah, someone stitched him up. Nah, he's too down the line. He's too much of like the guy that I would support 100%. You know, Matt wants a flamethrower. Get the fucking flamethrower then, because Matt wants it. There's no questioning behind it. It's just what? What for? Like, no idea, but they come in with it. All right, fucking blow that down. Okay. And I would like easily, if I was in the Antarctic, I would want that guy, as flawed as he is, to be telling us what to do. Because he's just great, isn't he? So I absolutely love him in this. I love him in a lot of things. I think that the work that he's done with Carpenter, I think Carpenter really brings out this confidence in Russell. I think Snake Plissken is just an incredible character. I think Jack Burton is an incredible character. And I think McCready is an incredible character. And I think them three films is enough. But he's went on and he's done other things, and he knows now to take a back seat. And I think the stuff he's done with Quentin Tarantino, especially like Death Proof and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think he's fantastic playing himself in that kind of role, and that tongue-in-cheek kind of role. And Russell's always great. And I especially love him in Vanilla Sky, and I don't think people talk about that film enough or that performance enough. And I think he's absolutely wonderful in that. But in this, 100%. I mean, the amount of times I tried to grow my hair and beard exactly the same.
I mean, we've talked about hair and beards on this podcast quite a lot. Surely this is the pinnacle, isn't it?
It's it. That's it.
Has to be, 100%. All downhill for me for beards.
Well, as much as we like him in the film, Kurt Russell wasn't quite A-list at this point when he made The Thing, so he wasn't a shoo-in for the role of McCready, and other people were considered, some big names as well. Have you heard any of them?
I've heard Jeff Bridges was in the frame at one point.
Yeah, well, before that, when Bill Lancaster wrote the script, he was actually thinking of Harrison Ford and Clint Eastwood playing McCready. I mean, they had no chance of getting either, really. But I think it's quite easy to imagine early 80s Harrison Ford as McCready, to be honest.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah, I can see where he's coming
Just
from.
like Empire Strikes Back, to be fair.
Big furry hood.
And the fucking ice again.
Nick Nolte and Jeff Bridges, like you say, Matt, they both turned the role down. Carpenter met with and considered Kevin Kline, but the studio felt he didn't have enough star power, and Alec Baldwin also auditioned. He'd have been too young, I think. He'd have only been about 22, 23, I think, at the time. So after all of those names, Carpenter turned to his pal, Kurt Russell. They'd worked together a year earlier on Escape from New York, and also in Carpenter's TV movie about Elvis, where Russell definitely brings the star power the studio wanted, so they were easily convinced to get him in as McCready. So, with all that said, what's your favourite McCready moment in the film?
Well, I'm going to go with this very first scene, actually, because I think it's one of the best character introductions I've ever seen. And for a start, and this is something else that you only realise after like a few viewings, McCready is the only character who has his own place. Like, everyone else is living in that compound. Some of the guys are even having to share rooms together. McCready is just like, no, fuck you guys, I want to be around you all as little as possible. And secondly, this scene, it just tells you all you need to know about him, and it also tells you what the end of the film is going to be. I mean, firstly, I think it's interesting that he's not playing Pong on this computer or anything. He's playing chess. So he's an intelligent guy, and he can think tactically. But when he loses, rather than admit defeat, he will happily just destroy that game. Like, this one possession that's been keeping him sane, apart from whiskey, obviously.
Yeah.
And he just upends the board basically and burns all the pieces rather than loose to it. And that's why he does at the end of the film. When he knows the thing is won, he doesn't do what the Norwegians do. He doesn't put a gun in his mouth and just take the easy way out. He just goes, if I'm going down, I'm taking that thing down with me. And he does. He obviously literally burns the place to the ground rather than loose. So
Yeah,
I think
he
that's
does say that, doesn't he? He does say, we're not getting out of here alive.
Yeah.
Neither is that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
And that's him routine. I think it's just a lovely bit of foreshadowing you get here, and it's a great introduction to maybe 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes of screen time. I think it's pretty outstanding.
Yeah, that computer, by the way, the chess computer, is voiced by Adrienne Barbeau, who was John Carpenter's wife at the time.
Nice. My favourite McCready moment is when they actually go back to the Norwegian camp, and then you realise how badass he is. He's fine to go to different rooms by himself. He's like, I'll just check this out. Yeah, no worries. What the fuck's that? Is that some kind of human thing? Is that whatever? Get it outside, we'll burn it. Right, I'll do the other rooms myself. It's just like, and I just love that. We've got the introduction of the character that Matt said, but I think this is just more fleshed out of his actual kind of outlook on things, and nothing phases him.
Yeah.
You're straight in with him. You want to follow him places. And when he goes into the rooms, in other horror films, you don't want to follow anyone into a room. But in this film, you want to follow McCready into a room because you know that he can handle himself.
Yeah.
And then when you see that block of ice with the hole in it where something's escaped, and he's just kind of like, there's just that silence between the two of them.
Yeah.
And that seemed, it must be like 45 seconds to a minute where he walks in, there's just nothing. They're just looking, and they're looking at each other, and it's so powerful. It's so well played. I think that is, then you go, right, I know who McCready is. I want to follow him, no problem.
Yeah. He's seen some shit, hasn't he? You can tell that.
Yeah. It's great when they get there and they've got axes smashed into doors and blood on the floor, and that guy who just slit his own throat sitting in the chair. And
then the blood's frozen as well, coming out of his veins.
Great.
It's badass. That was that's really cool.
Yeah. That's disgusting.
Yeah, it is disgusting, but brilliant.
We don't really get the details in the film, but there was a backstory written for McCready that we kind of see at times on the screen. Do you want to hear what his backstory was?
Yes, I do. Is it Vietnam? I hope it is.
Of course it is. Of course it is. So the idea is that McCready is a former Vietnam helicopter pilot. He was involved in some sort of tragedy during the war and felt ashamed and disgraced by whatever happened, and because of this, McCready suffers from PTSD, he's an alcoholic, and has severe insomnia. It's not specifically mentioned in the film, but explains the swigging whiskey from the bottle, why he's not fazed by the over-the-top violence, and adds some substance to the lines like, I'm a real light sleeper child, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I get that from Palmer as well. I think he's there because he's a pilot, and he's got all that kind of, he's got the US Navy, he's got the US Army patches on, he's got that denim, he's smoking all the doobs. You've got to check, he's definitely a Vietnam fucking pilot. So is McCready. I think they might have been in the same kind of regiment or something. He's just brought him along just to give him a little bit of a break. It's like that's why McCready offers to fly all the time over Palmer.
Yeah. Well, there was no award recognition for Kurt Russell for The Thing, but as we mentioned, he did go on to big things afterwards and became a household name movie star. Some of those films, Big Trouble in Little China, another Carpenter film, Overboard, Tango and Cash, Backdraft, Tombstone, Stargate, The Hateful Eight, there's lots of others. And to finish us off on Kurt Russell on The Thing, I've got a nice quote from John Carpenter. So, JC said, of all the actors I've worked with, it's always been Kurt. He gets what I want like no other actor, which is why I wanted him for The Thing. He had great ideas and we had such a fun time doing it. Kurt is Kurt, and more than that, he's my pal.
Lovely that. Actually, do you know what my favourite scene from McCready is? When you first see him in the helicopter with that Yosemite Sam hat on.
Oh, it's amazing.
Massive grin.
How the fuck has he pulled that off? Put anyone in that, you're an absolute loser. Put Kurt Russell in that, you're a superstar. Unbelievable.
You're right, I've never even realised how ludicrous that hat is, but it is totally ridiculous now you mention it, because he totally pulls it off.
With a little hoodie underneath and shades on, and then that hat, and he's totally serious. Right, I'm going back up, fuck it. Okay, whatever. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that there's a big cast in The Thing. We don't have time to discuss them all, unfortunately. Other actors are certainly worth a mention, though. So, aside from Kurt Russell and McCready, who's your other favourite in there?
I'd say Palmer for me. I love Palmer because he's just really... He reminds me like Murdoch from the A-Team.
Yeah,
like the helicopter pilot. He's got the denim on. He's obviously he's left and he's right and he's all over the place. But it taps into theory number one. He would go.
Oh, he would go.
Get in.
Right. Palmer fucked the blood up. He was in there. He got the keys. He fucked that up because the great thing about it is when you see them all arguing about it, and then when Windows runs away, Palmer's constantly just got his earphones in. He's totally zoned out of the whole conversation. Doesn't mention anything. Watch it again. Like, why has he got his earphones in? Why is he not bothered? And you see Windows. He drops the keys because he's been told to get them from Gary. He drops the keys, and then you don't see Palmer. And I think he's just this real red herring in the whole film. And he's really like engaging when you see him talking. He's got all these things to say, and nobody considers what he says. He's thrown out the window straight away. He's like, "Oh, thanks for thinking about it, though. I'll take them up." Like, "No, you can't do it." He's like, "Okay." So automatically, he's backseat, and then as an audience, you put him backseat. But if you watch it again, he's responsible for a lot of the issues that happen going forward. There's all these kind of different twists and different turns, and what's happening here and where is he? Because he's just so engaging, but at the same time so ignorable. He kind of just blends in. So I think as a character, it's perfectly played. It's really, really good. But I just think he's just a great character who just sits right underneath everybody else. But at the same time, he's really memorable but forgettable. And I don't really think I can think of another character in any other film who has impacted us in that way. He feels like Rumsfeld out the Burbs, but a younger version.
Totally.
But like if he got out of there, he'd just be like, "Oh yeah, okay, whatever." But he's got that like kind of vet. He's got that. It's almost stereotypical, but you can completely buy it. And I love his performance. I think he's great.
Yeah, he's played by David Clennon, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think when you watch the film, you don't really notice him that much. You're right, but then afterwards, he's really memorable when you think back to it. Which I guess is testament to how well they handle the character throughout the story. And
he's like me, isn't he? He's sat there and he's like, "Oh well, they taught the Incas everything they know. They fall out of the sky like flies." He's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Matt, who's your favourite other character in there?
I'm going for Windows. Actually, I've got a lot of sympathy for the guy.
Of course you are. Because you look like him.
Oh, okay. Oh, you've stolen. Oh, you dick! You've stolen me punchline. Right,
son of a bitch! You stole my line.
But yeah, I completely empathise with the guy because he's the radio operator. It's his job to make contact with someone else out there and try to get information or get help. And obviously, he just can't. You know, nothing's going right for him. He's having like a really, really bad day. So you can just really feel that frustration that he's got. And I do like how he's one of the few characters that really does trust McCready throughout the film. You know, he's not somebody who ever like goes against him. He's always like trying to argue for letting him back in, or you know, saying he's okay. So I like that about him. And the thing, out of all the characters that get killed in this film, he's the only one I feel a bit sorry for.
Yeah.
Like when Palmer chomps him. Because he fucks up with the flamethrower and he's just horrified by what's going on with Palmer. And then the fact that he does like trust McCready, but then McCready just, you know, without thinking, just burns him alive. No hint of remorse or like anything like that. Just boom, straight out of there.
It's a hell of a death, and that though, and he's just swung around the whole room. It's like Jesus fucking Christ.
And that screaming, and when he's just in the corridor and he's just kind of like kicking his legs, and he's just got like shit all over him.
Yeah, and then McCready's in the corner of the room. McCready's like, "Oh fuck him." Okay, yeah,
just burn him alive. But more than that, we've all been through lockdown. You know, until recently, we've all had to go without haircuts. And as much as I'd like to say that my lockdown hair was like McCready, it was lovely and lustrous. To be honest, for the past year, I've really, really looked like Windows.
Just getting on the radio, trying to get in touch with anybody. I don't think anyone's spoken on this continent, and you want me to fucking get in touch with somebody.
1,000 miles from nowhere, man.
Yeah, he's called Windows because he wears those glasses all the time. I know that it was actually the actor, Thomas G. Waite, who came up with that name. He showed up during rehearsals wearing the glasses and said, "I want everyone to call me Windows from now on." And Carpenter just went, "Yeah, alright then." And they changed the name. So that's where it came from. A big cast in the thing there, and we can't go through all of them in detail, which is a shame, but I think they all play their parts well, and the three we've mentioned there, Kurt Russell as McCready, Thomas G. Waite as Windows, and David Clennon as Palmer, are particularly memorable, I think.
Yeah, all brilliant.
The middle.
The second act of the thing is where the paranoia really kicks in. By this time, the scientists know there's a killer alien on the loose, and we've got a couple of big moments featuring the thing itself to talk about. The famous and bonkers defibrillator scenes coming up, but before that, we're talking about the first time we see the thing strike and take a person.
Yeah.
So, after performing an autopsy on the malformed humanoid creature found at the Norwegian camp, the scientists leave it in a storage room with Bennings for company. It doesn't work out well. The creature isn't dead, and it attacks and assimilates Bennings. Pretty gruesome, isn't it?
Oh, it's nasty.
Disgusting.
This sequence, right? There's an amazing detail in this, and Westy kind of alluded to it earlier. And it's really quite easy to miss, and to be honest, it was only fairly recently I picked up on it. And it's,
Great, I'm excited about this.
Well, it's the fact that when Windows leaves Bennings alone, he says he's going to get the keys from Gary to help lock up.
Right.
Windows comes back, he obviously sees that Bennings is being grabbed. And if you listen, you can hear Windows drop the keys on the floor because he's in complete shock.
Right.
And that then feeds into the later scene, which we've talked about, where the men are arguing around the fridge about who broke in and who destroyed all the blood bags, because you need the keys to open it. And that's how someone got the keys, because Windows has dropped them here.
Right.
And you don't need to hear that for that scene to make sense, because it's more about who did it rather than how. But if you pick up on that, on those keys dropping, it just adds another layer to it. And it also adds another layer as to Windows' reaction in that scene later on, because he's thinking, fuck, this is my fault. You know, I dropped the keys. Someone got them. This is on me.
Straight for the shotgun, isn't he?
Yeah, straight for the shotgun, because it just like, you know, the stress he's already under, that's like the straw that breaks the camel's back for him, because this is on him.
Lovely.
Yeah, so I love that. That's arguably, even though you see the thing here, that might just be my favourite bit about it, just that little detail, because it's quite easy to miss, but once you pick up on it, it just changes the rest of the film.
Nothing gets past you, Matt.
Well, I mean, unless it's like the first 40 times I watched it or whatever. And it's like, oh, the keys. No, it makes sense. But then as for what's happening to Bennings, it's just another what the fuck moment, and I think it's fantastic how the thing never reveals itself the same way more than once. It already looks different to what it did when it came out of the dog. And I think Carpenter just holds this shot perfectly, just long enough so you can see something like really fucked up is happening to Bennings. Like, is he being skinned alive? Is he being eaten? Is he coming out of like a cocoon or something? But then he cuts away, so you don't get like a chance to take it fully in. And I think it's really nasty. But then when you consider that, like earlier on, Bennings has got Superstition by Stevie Wonder crap, he kind of deserves what he gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
The Thing's a big fan of that one, clearly.
Yeah.
Well, Carpenter's known as an expert in horror, and he's certainly flexing those muscles here in this scene. That shot where we see the thick blood dripping off the table to signify the Thing's still alive, that's classic stuff, and Carpenter does it perfectly, as you probably expect him to. And the shot where Windows walks in and we see Bennings in the corner being absorbed. Horrible, that. Disgusting. And when the corner the Bennings thing, and it lets out that high-pitched scream, that's the stuff of nightmares, that. I know the idea is that Scream is a combination of every life form the Thing's ever assimilated, which is why it's so weird.
Right.
What I like as well, and this doesn't just apply to this scene, but the film is obviously set in Antarctica, but was filmed in LA mostly, and British Columbia. So in order to create the illusion of below freezing conditions, the sets and the stages were refrigerated down to 4 degrees Celsius when it was about 40 degrees outside. So the shots from we can see actors' breaths is actually real, except maybe Kurt Russell, who might have had a drag on a cigarette on a lucky strike or something.
And of course, outside the set, and it was like 100 degrees, and like sitting in the park. Nightmare.
Either location, Russell still the coolest man there, no matter what's going on.
Easy.
And of course, the moment the corner of the Bennings thing and we see is not yet transformed hands, that's just horrifying. It's quite a simple sequence, really, but you can see Carpenter all over it, which is why I like it.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's just one of them real kind of like, all right, Jesus Christ. Like, I wouldn't just drop the keys. I'd drop my arse.
I'm glad that didn't happen.
Seeing that, it's like, I'd be no good. I wouldn't be able to warn anyone of anything. I'd be scuttling around like puking everywhere. It's ridiculous, and it is disgusting. But I love Blair's kind of research before this scene. And it goes in, you see that computer, and it's just so primal. Now you watch it because it's 82, and you go, dog, cell, human, bomb. It is and it's like, thanks for that, John Carpenter. There's no need to hold it for 20 fucking minutes. Like, I get it. Like, we're there, and then chance of someone might be infected, 75%. But I love when they look through the window and you see Bennings running, and you know he's not ready. You know he's not fully formed yet, and he kneels down just right in that spotlight. Without any dialogue, makes exactly the same decision. Like, he's got to go. Without anyone saying anything. And you, as an audience member, you kind of go, yeah, he's got to go. As soon as he turns around, he's like, rah, and his arms are fucked. You're like, please take that out, whatever it is. But you're on the same page. I think this is where Carpenter just goes, right, you're in there with these guys now, deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's fantastic.
Another interesting thing about this sequence is that it wasn't originally in the script. So initially Bennings would just vanish, so we would assume that the thing got him at some point. And it was the editor, a guy called Todd Ramsey, who was the reason it was added into the film. So to make sure he understood the film well enough to edit it, Carpenter asked Ramsey to explain the pathology of the thing to him, and Ramsey did, but he got it wrong. So Carpenter added in this Bennings scene to make it clear how the thing absorbs a life form and replicates it, basically. I'm still not entirely sure how clear it is, but that's why this is put it in there.
It's not clear at all, but you know, there's the genius of this film. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's just something that because you don't understand it, because it doesn't lay the foundation down, it makes it even scarier. That the film doesn't understand itself. It's almost like something. It's like a true story about something that nobody understands yet.
Yeah, it does work. You're right.
It's terrifying, but it really works.
Yeah.
So an important scene there where Bennings is taken. We see the thing attack a human for the first time, and the scene wasn't in there originally, but I think it's a pretty integral addition.
Yep, disgusting.
From there, paranoia is everywhere. After the other scientists suspect McCready of being the thing, McCready holds him up with dynamite, resulting in Norris having a heart attack and Copper getting the defibrillators out. We see the thing in all its glory and some outrageous and inspired special effects work. One scene never forgotten, this defibrillator scene, I think.
Nah. Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? Every time I'm watching it, I'm like, I always just, if I'm watching it at home, I'm thinking, right, like, if whoever's going to come home, like, come home now and come in right now while I'm watching this scene. I'm like, what the fuck are you watching?
Yeah. I've watched the thing with people before who've never seen the thing, and every time I'm thinking, I can't wait for the defibrillator moment to come.
Like, here it is, right, boom. And he just when he's like, guys, I need a hand here. And he's like, no, you're going to need 2 in a minute. Like, you know, it's just so good. And I know Rob Bottin, like, the special effects guys, like, made that up. That guy was an amputee. And like his arms were gone, so they made them out of jello. So they made his arms out of jello and had all of the blood spurted out of it, and then they made like a perfect cast of the guy's face, the doc's face, and put it over this guy. And then that was a real hydraulic like machine on the stomach. They crushed the arms and like, smashed the jello in, and all the blood spurts out all over the place. But I don't really think anyone knew how good it was going to look. And there's so many things in this scene, like when the head slips off backwards and like kind of disappears, but there's just that pan that Dean Cundy does. It's that perfect, like, it's a tilt. It's just like from the top to bottom, but the timing of that tilt is exactly the same as the head sliding down. Like, watch it again. That's so fucking good to judge that and get it that exactly. It's literally like 2-3 seconds. But I watch that and I go, that is fucking perfect. But the first time they did this, I don't know if you know it, but like Rob Bottin had all of these bits coming out of the throat, like from when his head was discharged and that was coming back off the table, and it was all like plastic and bubble gum, just to make it look really like veins. And he said, well, we started like shooting it and going, actually, we need some continuity. We need some flames in here. So a guy had like a fire stick, it was called, had little holes punched in it, and you can hold it, and it puts flames out in the bottom of the frame. Yeah. But because they were like, didn't have a clue what they were doing, it just looked great. They didn't really realise the materials they were using, and they were all giving off these like toxic fumes, like flammable fumes. And they were like, okay, this is a one-shot deal. We've got this face made. Here we go. The head's going back. Right, light the fire. They lit the fire, and they said the whole set just went up, boom. Like everyone was sat there like in a Looney Tunes cartoon with like black faces, being like, what the fuck was that? So we set fire to it. It's gone. They said, well, we didn't get the take, and Carpenter was like, do it again. He's like, it's going to take us half a day to redo this. He's like, you're going to have to do it again. So the very first shot of that, because of everything that they put into it, was completely ridiculous. But that's because like, and that's why I love this scene, because it's so outrageous. One of these clips would make sense, but there's about 4 or 5 scenes in here where you go, this is fucking stupidly good. Painted the ceiling, bites windows, heads off. He's absorbing them. Oh, he's cut the fucking arms off and his stomach's closed. His head's coming off and turned into a spider. What the fuck is this, like 10 minutes long or what? It's amazing. Yeah. Fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be fucking kidding, are the only words that fit. And this is my favourite moment in the film. It's the bit I always look out for. The moment Copper's arms are bitten off is awful, but it always makes me laugh, like a really dark laugh, because it's so ludicrous. I mean, intentionally so. The practical effects work here from Rob Bottin and his team is just off the charts. The chest mouth and then the spider head come back to back, and it's some sight still to this day. Back in 1982, that must have just been insane seeing that for the first time. Also, I think the influence of Alien on the Thing is pretty obvious, and never more so than in this particular scene. Pretty clear comparison to the chest burster sequence, I think.
It's like a reverse idea, isn't it? It's like,
Exactly. Yeah. And this isn't as iconic as that scene in the Alien, obviously, but I like it just as much. I absolutely love it.
Well, it's disgusting, obviously, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it's fucking awful.
I mean, you're just sitting there watching this thinking, you know what, I've seen some fucked up shit so far, but that doesn't prepare you for what's coming now. But what's so clever is how Carpenter gets you into this scene, because he's distracting you with the characters and what's going on between them. Because just before this, you've got that argument about whether or not to let McCready back inside or leave him outside to freeze to death, but he breaks in anyway, and he's got the dynamite and he's going to blow everyone up, and then Clark steals the scalpel and he's hidden that away, so you know he's going to go from, and then Norris has the heart attack. So it's just all going off, all these different characters that do like things that you're just trying to keep track of, and it's all just building up to something, and you've kind of forgotten in a way like about this actual threat that they should be united against, and they're just too busy squabbling and plotting against each other, and you get distracted by that. So then that's why it's so shocking when Carpenter just throws you straight into it, because it just keeps building. You know, Norris's chest caves in, enormous teeth, bites Copper's arms off, so he's out of there, and then Norris's head stretching off, sprouts limbs, becomes a spider, scuttles off. It should be ludicrous. It is ludicrous.
It is ludicrous.
Imagine this written down in the screenplay. You're like, this is fucking great.
Exactly.
Make it now.
But here's the thing, like, I think another director would have probably lost their nerve about how far this scene goes, and would be like, no, that's far too much, pull back. But not Carpenter. He's just so fearless about it. He's like, no, keep going, more, give me more. Let's push this as far as we can and see what we end up with. And you just unleash as hell. And the way that it all just builds, like one incident after another, you're watching this, it's like, fuck. Can't believe what I'm seeing. So it's absolutely insane what we're seeing, but I do think that build up to it is just as good and just as clever. It's an incredible scene. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So suspense and mistrust undercut every moment by this time in the film. Crew members are going thick and fast, the tension levels are rising off the charts, and Rob Bottin is in danger of running away with the entire film. A couple of pretty great sequences we've talked about there, I think.
Oh yeah, great. You gotta be fucking kidding.
The Crew.
The Thing is John Carpenter's film, of course, but a film like this always needs a talented team to pull off the various aspects of it, and JC definitely had that.
Yep.
We're talking in detail about the composer Ennio Morricone, the director of photography Dean Cundy, and special effects supervisor Rob Bottin, but as we like to, we're starting with the writing of the movie.
Yep.
So the screenplay for The Thing was written by Bill Lancaster, son of Burt Lancaster, the huge Hollywood star of the 50s, and at this point Bill had 2 screenwriting credits. The Bad News Bears and The Bad News Bears Go to Japan.
Well, I mean, the first one's better, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, when it came to writing The Thing, Lancaster had 2 sources to use as inspiration, didn't he? The B movie The Thing from Another World from 1951 we mentioned earlier, and also the novel on which both movies are based. That's Who Goes There, a 1938 novella written by John W. Campbell Jr. So how good or bad do we think the writing is on The Thing?
I think it's really, really good. I think because this film is so famous for its effects and what Carpenter brings to it, I think the writing gets overlooked a lot, actually. I think it's a shame, because I think Lancaster does bring a lot. I think firstly, how they get the idea of that creature from the page onto screen so it makes sense. And I love how, and we've kind of touched on this, how it's not over explained. There's still lots of unanswered questions about exactly what it is they've been fighting by the end of the film, and that to me adds to how terrifying it is. So how much contact do you actually need to transfer the cells of the thing, and does that mean it can take you over more slowly? Because you've got that scene where Blair is talking about like the dog thing, and he's touching it with his pencil to illustrate a point, but then he's putting that pencil to his lips. Is that enough?
Yeah. And there's the opening as well, like with the dog, like licking at Bennett, just trying to like, lick the face, and then it calms down once a Norwegian shot. So there's a lot of stuff in
there's
there.
lots of stuff like that. And I also think it's really strong with the characters, because you got 12 guys here, all roughly around about the same age, a lot of them have similar jobs. Some of them even look fairly similar, but they've all got very different and unique personalities that come out really clearly and really quickly. And I think more importantly than that, you get a sense of all the fractured relationships that are going on in this space. You can see who holds grudges against who. You can see that no one really has any respect for Gary, even though he's the leader. You can see that there's some sort of history between Clark and Childs, and they don't get on. McCready doesn't really trust anyone, and all that's really important because that contributes to how this team falls apart and just completely fails to deal with this threat. And lastly, one of the best things about this film, and it all comes from the writing, is that streak of ambiguity that runs throughout the whole film, and the writing really brings that out. You know, who did get to the blood bags and when? What is the deal with McCready's shredded long johns? What does happen to Fuchs? You know, the red herring about Clark spending so much time with the dog and he actually turns out to be human. All that's in the writing. I think it's really, really strong.
Yeah, I agree. I think the writing's very good. On the whole, it's got a strong story, taken from the novella, of course, and it's a kind of story we've seen many, many times. A group of people in a confined space and a disgusting alien killing them one by one. Even just within a few years of The Thing, we've got Alien, Aliens and Predator, all basically telling the same high-level story. So we've seen it before, but Bill Lancaster adapted it well. There's not huge depth to the characters in terms of backstory or knowing much about them, but I think it still works. I think that's probably testament to Carpenter and the cast, maybe more than the writing, but Lancaster does what he needs to with the characters. Where the writing stands out, though, for me, and this is the part of the writing that makes The Thing, is the theme of paranoia that runs from the end of the first act right till the final seconds of the film. Once the scientists know the creature can look like them, there's this undercurrent of tension and mistrust that powers every single scene, and that's what makes The Thing move away from Alien and the rest of them for me. This was the early 80s, of course, where the AIDS epidemic was all over the news, so the idea of not being able to tell who's infected just by sight, only blood tests can reveal it, we'll see that in The Thing. It's also been said that the narrative of The Thing reflects communism, McCarthyism and the Cold War, and the idea that anybody at any time can become the enemy, like an enemy within. Again, we'll see that in The Thing. So it's very much a product of its time, the writing, in terms of reflecting what was going on in the West at the time, which I really like. It dates the film, but in the best way possible, by making it really relevant to when it was made. A negative in the writing for me, which goes slightly against what Matt was saying, is that there's so many things go unexplained. There's plot holes you could drive a snowplow through at times. But I think even that has worked in the film's favour, because there's so many theories out there about all the different aspects of the film, which I'm not entirely convinced at all they were going for at the time. I think they're just plot holes, to be honest. And as a result, though, there's this ambiguity about the life cycle of the creature that I find interesting. Like, the question I find most interesting of all is, when somebody is the Thing, do they know they're the Thing? I don't think we ever find out, and I find that really interesting. So, positive for me mostly, a slightly mixed bag in some ways. The writing is very good, really solid in terms of the story and character, and the theme of paranoia and reflections it sends back to the early 80s America is where it really, really stands up for me still, and where it really impresses.
Yeah, exactly the same as you guys. I think it's just the paranoia that comes across, that sense of claustrophobia that comes across. I think that's all in the writing. But the thing that strikes me about this whole film is the dialogue. There's just no fat on that whatsoever. Every line that's spoken makes sense, and the exposition doesn't feel like exposition. Like, it's one of them rare films where you want to hear what the fuck's going on, even though they know exactly what's going on really quickly. Like, Blair knows exactly what's going on. Oh, this cell is replicated. You see that? That's not a dog. That's a thing. And you're just kind of like, this is the kind of lecture I want to sit in. This is the kind of shit I want to hear this. Like, you just want to absorb all of this information because it's left off the page for the first, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then you start understanding. And then when these guys understand, you start to understand. And I think that's the genius of the writing. And I know this harks back a lot more to the novella than it does to the original The Thing from Another World, which was just almost like Frankenstein's monster getting set on fire and chomping about the place. Wouldn't work as well. I mean, it's great. It is good for what it is, but I mean, that is definitely a product of its time. But I think this, wholeheartedly, hand on heart, I think this was miles ahead of its time. I think this was about 15 years too early for audiences to grasp this paranoia, this kind of concept of people not trusting each other, and like you say, John, the AIDS pandemic was just coming up, and there was a blood test thing, and people didn't understand what was going on. I mean, we're coming out of the 70s, we're coming out of the whole heyday of, like, you know, freedom and free speech, and all of a sudden you're claustrophobic, and you're cold, and you're in the middle of nowhere, and you're surrounded by something that you don't understand. so something else is going to come in. So even from our times now, being in lockdown, being in quarantine from a disease that we don't understand, the thing is now relevant now, even more so, and it's just a way ahead of its time. And I think that's what Lancaster's done really well with that writing, is taken that concept and made it timeless. Because he's putting it in a place that doesn't age. Antarctica never gets old. It's the same. If you went there now, you'd probably look like McCready.
Well, I'm going then.
Yeah, love to.
I hope so. No, that's why I'm going next week.
Look more like Windows for me.
All three of us. Yeah, you're right. It is still relevant, especially with the pandemic and the way things have been. I mean, Matt left the recording before to go and answer his dog barking. I'm not entirely sure who's came back.
Well, exactly.
I did, yeah. I've had some very dodgy looks since then.
He was out like an hour and a half, Matt.
The hell are you looking at me like that for?
Has he got the same beard?
So, like I mentioned, The Thing is an adaptation of the John W. Campbell Jr. novella Who Goes There from 1938. It's actually a much more faithful adaptation than The Thing from Another World movie was, but there are still differences to the book. Would you like to hear what they are?
Absolutely.
So, the Norwegian scientists and crew aren't in the book, so no scene where McCready and Copper visit their camp or anything like that.
Right.
You mentioned the scientists there, Westy. The book has 37 American scientists, which
Too many.
which far too many.
And it's a short story. That's too much.
Which Bill Lancaster reduced to 12 for the best, obviously. And in the book, the blood test is the climax of the story rather than the end of the second act. Like,
I can see that. I can totally see that. Yeah.
I think in a short story it would work really well as the climax.
Yeah. Brilliant.
No award recognition for Bill Lancaster for writing The Thing, and after the film, he didn't do anything. Not in movies anyway. The Thing was the last feature screenplay he ever wrote. I think it killed a few people's careers, this film at the time.
Yeah, fortunately.
Shame.
Well, somebody whose reputation definitely wasn't affected by The Thing was the guy who composed the music. The legendary Ennio Morricone, a veteran of TV and film by this point. He was most famous for his work with Sergio Leone on the iconic Dollars trilogy, but this was the first time he'd worked with Carpenter. Quite the departure in terms of genre for Ennio Morricone then. Is his work here good?
Well, yeah, it's great. I mean, from what you can really gather from it, because it's not obvious at all. Like when you watch a film, you just think, well, what was the Morricone score like? I don't really know, because it really accentuates emotion, and it's there, and I think it's the Thing's theme, and it's just got that, that heartbeat, that bum bum.
It's incredible.
Bum. That's what plays in my head whenever anyone asks me about sports. You watch a match, did you? Bum 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 bum. Fucking hell. Leave us alone. But that's it. But it's when the spaceship's discovered. That's when, to me, it really lifts.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a backstory, Morricone, and here he's like giving you the backstory to what the Thing has been through, but he's not giving you what it's going through or any kind of future. It always seems like it's one of them brilliant moves by Carpenter to give you like something from the past, because from like the Dollars trilogy, from Once Upon a Time in the West, from Once Upon a Time in America, you just think of Morricone and you think classic, real classic score.
Yeah.
And he gives the Thing this kind of real classic backstory just through the score. Like when that camera pans to that block of the ice, they've gone from the spaceship, you see the spaceship reveal, but then there's that pan to the ice, and it's just this whole, like, it's like telling you a story of like this. It's really somber, but it's really angry, and it's really like upsetting at the same time, and just these like 3 or 4 notes, and it's beautifully done. But if what's your favourite Morricone score, I would never ever say The Thing, but it really should be up there. But it's so subtle, it's perfect.
Yeah, a strange collaboration, Carpenter and Morricone, isn't it? Not two people you put together,
right?
slashers and spaghetti westerns. So, bit of an odd couple at the time, but it didn't matter at all. Morricone's a master, so he can turn his hand to just about anything successfully, and that's what he does here. That bum 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 bass line that represents the heartbeat of The Thing and undercuts the main theme is just fantastic. And I think Morricone is clearly channeling Carpenter here as well.
Yeah.
At this point, Carpenter had written the music to all of his films before The Thing, and I think it sounds like a Carpenter score. I mean, the arrangements are way more complex than Halloween or Assault on Precinct 13, but it's got that brooding bass and the catchy melody style that Carpenter stuff usually has. Carpenter wanted tension and paranoia, and the mood Morricone set in the music gives him all of that from the very first scenes right till the final one. I think to me, the score of the thing sounds like Morricone and Carpenter both at the same time. You've got to be some composer to pull that off, because the two styles couldn't be more different, and Morricone certainly was that. So yeah, fantastic work.
It's like Morricone on a synth.
Yeah.
It's like he's just found a synth and he's like, bomb, that'll do. Bomb. Yeah, I sound like John Carpenter. That's easy. Bomb. Right, fucking yes, amazing.
Well, I listened to it the other day actually in preparation for this, and it did make me chuckle when I saw like the soundtrack album, what all the tracks are called. The tracks are called like Bestiality, Solitude.
Really?
Yeah, Sterilization. The last one is just called Despair.
Oh.
It's like, it's like a Joy Division album or something.
That's my funeral song. I'll have the Braveheart soundtrack and then Despair of the thing. Braveheart soundtrack in full, then Despair. Handle that, bastards.
No, but this score, in some ways, it's almost classic Morricone. It's obviously very subtle compared to his work with Leone or The Untouchables, for example, but he's still using strings, he's still using woodwind instruments, but then it's how he lays in those synth tracks as well, which are the most Carpenter-esque bits of music that Carpenter never wrote. And it all works. It all works.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it all just works so beautifully together. And if I had to sum the soundtrack up though in one word, I think it would be dread, because that's what this music just gives me throughout. Every different bit just fills you with dread, and I think there's so much inherent tension in this music that's really evocative. And it's one of the first films I remember I sat and I watched it to the very, very end credits, just because the music is so good at the end, when it is that heartbeat sound and it's the synths going underneath it, only like kind of 2 or 3 notes, I think, just in opposition, but it just grips you at the end. And one bit of music I really like in this, it's that scene where Blair's at his computer working out how long humanity's got left, which is no dialogue, just the music, and you've got that ticking clock sound because he's got the stopwatch going at the same time that's laid into it, and I find that scene just so chilling. It works really well. It's great music.
Yeah. Well, Carpenter's first choice of composer wasn't Morricone, it was actually Jerry Goldsmith, which I would imagine that's because of his influence on Alien, right? But, he totally passed on that, and the studio then suggested Morricone. So Carpenter flew to Rome to meet him, like from LA. He flew all the way to Rome, spent a bit of time with him, and Morricone said he sat with him, he listened to a few bits, and he just said, less notes, and then left. That's it.
Must have been in a
all
hurry.
the way from LA to Rome. Listen to it. That's really good. Less of that. Bye.
So, no big award recognition for his work on The Thing for Ennio Morricone. He was, though, I don't know if you know this, nominated for a Razzie for Worst Musical Score.
For this film?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
That's outrageous, surely.
No,
yeah.
that
is outrageous.
Also, some of his unused work on The Thing turned up in Hateful Eight by Tarantino a few years later.
Yeah, that's right.
Where he won an Oscar. So, I don't know what's going on there.
And the Hateful Eight is basically The Thing without The Thing being in it, let's be honest. We'll talk about that later.
So Morricone passed away at the age of 91 in 2020, sadly, but his legacy and status as movie legend is sealed.
Yeah.
And to finish on the maestro on The Thing, I've got a quote from Carpenter himself. He said, "The studio had no interest in me scoring The Thing, so we hired Ennio. He was fabulous. He added something to it that I didn't ask for. This deep tragic sense that this is the end of things. Oh my God, I was so delighted with it."
Yeah, so would I be.
Yeah.
Give me Apocalypse any day. Apocalypse right now by Morricone.
Despair. The Thing was the first time Carpenter had worked with Bill Lancaster and Ennio Morricone, not so with the cinematographer. Dean Cundey was the director of photography on The Thing, and it was the fourth time he'd worked with JC after Halloween, The Fog and Escape from New York.
Yep.
One of Carpenter's most significant collaborators is Dean Cundey. So what do we think of his work on The Thing?
I love Dean Cundey, you know.
I know you do.
And I don't think people like...
That was so tenderly said.
That wasn't a profound comment.
I don't really expect him to be like... You don't expect him to be the guy who's pulled this off. Like, he's so good and just so focused, and I think a lot of his work people don't even understand or realise what he's done. But his work on this is brilliant because you don't notice it at all. You don't know when it's too dark, you don't know when it's overlit. Every single element of this scene, every single element of every sequence has its place and has its look and has its light and flamethrowers against snow. For somebody to be able to shoot this the way it is from looking at McCready talking to a computer at the start to then shooting a spider head like scurrying across the floor 40 minutes later, and for them both to look believable, and you're like, okay, that's fine. That's down to Cundy. He's got total control over this, and he nails it. And I've seen interviews with him, and he seems like a really lovely down to earth man, and he's just like, whatever you need I can do, and you know what, he does it here 100%.
I think the cinematography here is pretty stunning, as impressive as just about anything Dean Cundy's done for me, and he's been DP on Stone Cold classics. I think there's two challenges he had to work with and overcome on The Thing, and I think he succeeds brilliantly at both. The first is what I keep talking about, the underlying sense of paranoia the Carpenter wanted and the ominous threat that comes with it. To translate that into visuals is no mean feat, but Cundy pulls it off. Lots of shots of long corridors and the camera creeping down them, wide shots of the snowy Antarctic wasteland to give a sense of how isolated the scientists are. The camera seems to move quite a lot, but it moves so slowly most of the time that you maybe don't notice it consciously, but I think you feel it. Cundy never really takes over the film, I don't think, because this isn't Scorsese or Spielberg. There's no 4-minute tracking shots or dolly zooms, but Cundy's stitched into it start to finish without ever really noticing them. I think it's really impressive. And I think the second challenge is working with the practical effects. There'd be nothing quite like the Thing itself seen in films at the time, and Cundy has to shoot it and make it look good and not like a puppet. And what I like the Cundy and Carpenter do is that the film overall has a very muted colour palette, lots of like browns, greys, beige in the costume and production design, and a lot of white obviously with the snow setting. That was surely intentional, so that when the Thing shows up and reveals itself, it's really eye-popping. And to pull that off, the creature never looks anything other than extraordinary. That's not all down to Dean Cundy, of course, but he's the one shooting it, and he certainly plays his part with it. So I think he's fantastic, up there with anything he's done for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at Alien, how little that was lit just to get an essence of the alien. This, you see everything.
Yeah.
But you see it in flashlights, you see it in just a bit more of a creative way, and then when you see it all, you just kind of go, that's absolutely disgusting.
I mean, he's obviously Carpenter's go-to guy, and they've got that harmonious relationship because Carpenter knows Cundy will deliver what he needs for this film. And for me, it's about creating that atmosphere, and I think Cundy's work is so pivotal in doing that. I mean, obviously the location shooting, that gives you that sense of how freezing it is, but I think Cundy does a really great job linking that with all the stuff that's linking that with all the interior scenes. They seem just to score there's no disconnect between the outside and the inside in this film, which I think is really well done. And I just love his lighting. I think his lighting is so clever, using the flares, using the flamethrowers, using the light bulbs that you can see set into the ceiling of the compound. And it's never overlit. And I know that he did work very closely with Rob Bottin, and they had discussions about the best way to light the effects. Because if you overlight those, if you show too much, this film's dead. You know, you're going to
see all the intricacies of the rubber and all that kind of shit, right?
You're going to see the stuff holding them up. You're going to kill any effect that the film is aiming for. So all that is really well done by him. And as well as that, I think he also gets a real depth to some of these images, and I think he makes something I've never really seen before. I've never seen someone else do this, but he just makes really interesting and creepy use of empty space. Like we've mentioned, those long corridors, and that sense of space that you get around and behind these characters. You're almost constantly expecting something to pop into view, something to jump up behind them, and it never does. It's not that kind of film. But the way Cundy shoots and frames everything, it just puts you in a constant sense of unease, just with that kind of space behind everyone.
He does it so well, doesn't he, with nobody in it. It's the end of Halloween when he's going around the house. And them shots, and it's the same in the Thing when it's like there's the corridor and it's a steady cam out and there's nothing there. And you're like, what the fuck? But he just does it so well.
It's exactly that. It's that bit where it's very briefly done, but so effective. The camera just moves through the lab, in the corridor, and then you just get that shot of the rec room, which is completely empty. No one's in it. But it's still really unnerving, just the way he shoots it. And I can't even like wrap my head around how you do that, how you get that emotional response from an empty room.
So The Thing was Cundy and Carpenter's fourth collaboration, like I mentioned. And after the work he did in the previous three, JC was always going to bring Cundy back in here. So what's your favourite shot of his in the film?
Mine comes from what I think is one of the best scenes in the film. We've mentioned it briefly, and it's when McCready and Copper have gone to the Norwegian base to find out what's going on there. Then you get that bit where McCready goes a little bit further ahead of Copper, and then he shouts for Copper to follow him to come and look at what he's found, and you just get that lovely shot of the camera just pulling back away from Copper as he advances down the corridor, but then it switches perspective, and then the camera starts to push in instead into that storage space that McCready is standing, and you've just got that massive slab of ice that's got something huge carved out of it. It's so threatening in a way, you know. You just get a
evocative.
That's it, that's exactly it. Like, holy shit, what was in there? And just that switch in perspective between the two, I think it's fantastically well done.
It is brilliant, not just how it looks, but narratively as well. Like you say, you're thinking, what the hell was in that?
I mean, I've got a fair few, but the one that stands out for me is the ending when McCready's setting up the charges, and he's got the dynamite, he's got the plunger there, and he pulls it up, and Knowles just walks in to this noise, and it really pisses me off, because like, what you going in there for? Like, you know, something's going on, like, just leave it alone. But McCready hears it, and he turns, and you get that great shot of him turning. And then the camera then just goes to like this almost like wide tracking shot back, and you got McCready completely in silhouette, and he creeps forward. He's got the dynamite, and he doesn't know what to do, and you don't know what to do, and then he comes into that red light, and it's like, to me, that's like just such a hero moment, but so late in the film. It's like an Indiana Jones moment, but at the last scene, like this is what I'm here for. And that's just before the whole, like, well, fuck you too, and the whole thing kind of comes up. But it's just the way that sets that up, reminds us of Raiders, reminds us of Temple of Doom, reminds us of any single, like, hero kind of reveal, because you know now McCready needs to be the hero, and whether you like it or not, you're seeing it, and subliminally, that's what Cundy does, and I think it's fantastic.
Again, no award recognition for the movie, even though we've just waxed lyrical about the cinematography, but it didn't hinder Dean Cundy's career any. After The Thing, he went on to be DP on hits like Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Hook, Death Becomes Her, Jurassic Park, Apollo 13. I mean, some career that, isn't it?
Yeah, massive. And Psycho 2, which no one talks about enough because it's fucking great.
Credit for the astonishing look of The Thing can't all be laid at Dean Cundy's door, though. We've talked about it since the start of the episode, and the practical effects work involved in creating the creature is bloody bonkers and brilliant in equal measure.
Mental.
The special effects makeup and designer on the film was Rob Bottin. He headed up the effects team responsible for both dreaming up and then realising The Thing itself, and he had some pedigree coming into the film, having worked on Piranha, The Howling and The Fog with Carpenter. What was his work like here, though?
Well, it's literally like nothing else that had been done so far. I mean, I know before this, and apart from like his previous work, the year before this, you've got Evil Dead, I guess, but unlike that film, none of these are done for laughs. There's nothing remotely goofy or comical about what he's trying to achieve here, and it's the sheer range of effects that he's got to do. Dogs, humans, the remains of the find at the Norwegian camp, and nothing looks the same. Nothing ever feels like he ran out of time, so he just copied what he did before. And if you compare to the effects work in Alien, which we talked about, which is great, but in that film you've got one alien suit, you've got one stationary prop for the facehugger, and you've got one puppet that you see very briefly. But here, Bottin has got to create so many varied creatures that move in all kinds of different ways, and not one of them fails, not one of them lets the film down. And it absolutely just blows my mind he does this at the age of 22. I mean,
mind-boggling.
It's incredible, because he had that much passion and he had that much fire to prove himself and to push the limits on what was possible. And he worked on this film for over a year, and he didn't take a single day off, 7-day weeks for over a year, because he just had that fire in his belly, and he just had these ideas, and he had this one project that enabled him to just throw all of that in there. There's no other project he could have done where you would have this amount of creative license to do that. And that intensity and determination is just so clear to see in what he's put on screen. It's, just another astonishing aspect of the film.
Yeah. First of all, and you mentioned it there, Matt, Rob Bottin was 22 when he started work on the thing. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
No idea how he pulled all this off at that age. They actually wanted Rick Baker at first, who was fresh from winning an Oscar for An American Werewolf in London, and he was too busy, so they went, let's just get this kid in there instead then. I mean, we've talked about a lot of impressive things doing this podcast for the last however long, but being the main guy responsible for the effects on the thing at 22 years old is up there. Ridiculous.
100%.
And it's ridiculous because the practical effects are all-time top tier standard, deserve to be mentioned in the same conversations as Star Wars, Aliens, Jurassic Park. For me, they're that good. I think what's impressive is when you talk about groundbreaking visual effects in movies, you're usually talking about using new technologies that didn't exist to show us things that have never been done before. We talked about that on our Star Wars episode with the creation of ILM, on our Terminator 2 episode with the advent of CGI. But that's not what Bottin's done here. He wasn't working with a big budget. He's working with existing technologies that effects teams had used for years and years, and just through his passion, creativity, and being a bit of a maniac, he uses all that to create something that we've not seen before. He set the bar for himself massively high. It should have been impossibly high, what he's trying to pull off. And maybe the naivety of youth helped, it probably did, but he pulls all of it off. I don't know how. Every time the thing reveals itself in the film, the movie goes up a notch. Each time we see it, it's more batshit crazy than the last time we saw it, and each time it looks great. I've watched this film a few times with people who haven't seen it before, and the spider head, the chest chomper, Norris's head, every time the response is a mixture of horror and laughter, which I think is exactly what the filmmakers were going for. The thing is a classic nowadays, and it wouldn't be, I don't think, without Rob Bottin.
I totally agree. I've seen some great interviews with Rob Bottin on YouTube, and please check them out because he's
great.
A fucking maniac.
He's a top guy,
absolute legend.
He's just got this laid back kind of surfer attitude.
If I'm going to go for a pint with anyone after lockdown, it's going to be Rob Bottin as soon as possible.
I'm coming if you do. He's great.
Yeah, I'll invite her out. But sign up to Patreon. I'll send you an invite. But Bottin, he's so good and so strong. I mean, he got on the fog because he crept into the set, and he said to John Carpenter, he's like, I'm a big fan. Can I do anything on this? He's like, well, what can you do? He's like, I can do special makeup effects. He's like, well, go and fucking do it then. Yeah. So he did it, and Carpenter's like, Jesus Christ, they're amazing. I'm remaking The Thing. Do you want to do The Thing? He's like, you're remaking The Thing, and you want me to do it? He's like, yeah, I'll fucking do it. Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and he's just like a massive fan of it. And the real fucking tragedy for me is that this is dying off, this practical effect.
Yeah.
And people think it's funny, and it isn't. It's fucking amazing when it's done right, when Cundy shoots it, and when Bottin makes it, and it's just there, and you're going, yeah, you know what, this is outrageous, but it's so much fun. Bottin, to me, is just complete cinema. 100%. Absolutely love his work on this.
Yeah, it's really movie magic, practical effects, isn't it? Where you watch something and think, how did they do that? That never happens anymore because you know how they did it. It was done on a computer with CGI.
Yeah, it's fucking boring.
Yeah, thing is, though, we're talking about that, and in a way, he was kind of like almost his own worst enemy with this energy he had, because these punishing working conditions he was putting himself through. But what he also did, it got to the point where the stress of working on this and the schedules and the deadlines were piling up. So he stopped bothering going home. He wouldn't go home. He would sleep on the set. He would sleep in the locker room. He would sleep in the lab somewhere. And he ended up working 22-hour days to the point where he was hospitalised with severe exhaustion and pneumonia.
Really?
Yeah, because he was plagued with nightmares of the creatures he was creating as well. Like there was one day Carpenter turned up on set. And Carpenter was used to it. At this point, he would turn up and say, "Oh, where's Rob?" And someone would say, "Oh, he's asleep under a table over there." And Carpenter was used to it. But Carpenter said there was one day he turned up and he asked where Rob was, and Rob kind of came up to him and he just looked at him and went, "You do not look well. Can someone take this guy to the hospital, please, and get him checked out?"
Yeah.
And he had severe exhaustion, pneumonia, nearly killed himself creating this film.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know the Carpenter said that when he visited Bottin in hospital, Bottin asked him if he could have a cameo in the film, and Carpenter said, "I think you're doing enough, Rob."
You look too bad to be in the film.
That's how bad he looked. So on the special effects, we have a question from Patreon.
Okay.
So a benefit of being a patron is that we'll answer your questions on the show. So Peter Sutcliffe, not that one, hopefully.
I hope not.
Dread to think what his question is going to be.
So hello, Peter.
Hello, Peter.
Hello, Peter. Hello, mate.
Peter asks, which is the best or your favourite version of the Thing when it reveals itself?
Ooh, I don't like any of them. Like, they're all really fucking lifting, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're all disgusting. They're all kind of, you have to take a step back. And oh, there it is again. Oh, there it is again. I mean, it's like, do I dislike dogs more than I do humans? What do I want to see the worst of? But for me, it's when you see the explosion from Norris and it comes out of his stomach.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just on the ceiling, but it's spider-like, but you still got Norris's face, but it's really distorted.
Yeah. His little face is
just
horrible.
reminds me, that reminds me of like the posters or the things that I saw in like Fangoria magazine when I was reading it, or the stuff that always was like the Thing. This is it, and that was, to me, was the image of the Thing, and I was like, oh well, that's kind of what it looks like. So for me, that's what sits in my head.
The one for me is one I think sometimes doesn't get talked about as much as the others, and it's what Palmer turns into after the blood test scene. Because what they do to his face, I mean, his face just like kind of, I mean, it looks like his eyeballs basically pop out and they're just gushing blood, and his face is getting really massive and swollen. But it's the reaction of everyone, because he's got Childs and Gary tied up next to him, and they're just lifting, like trying to burst,
Get me the fuck out of here!
trying to burst out, and they can't move an inch, and they're just absolutely terrified. And it's the way that like the couch, it just keeps lifting up and down and smashing in the floor, and it's one of those shots where I think, how did they do that when the Palmer thing just flips up onto the ceiling and sticks there for a bit? In my head, like my brain is just leaking out of my ears at this point, like what the fuck is going on? And I love how it then lands, and this is obviously the bit where it gets windows, unfortunately, and its head splits open like a Venus flytrap, and then like a tongue just shoots out and wraps itself around windows. It's just insane, but yeah, I love that.
It's outrageous. It is outrageous,
and it's disgusting.
And how
disgusting.
quickly you get like you get Palmer's face, and it's normal, and then it cuts to McCready, and he's like, "Oh," and then you cut back, and his face is just fucked. It's just completely gone. Oh, okay, right, okay, we missed the middle section. Let's just go straight to the fucking terrifying bit. Okay.
No awards nominations for Rob Bottin for The Thing, which isn't really on,
ridiculous,
is it?
Outrageous.
The winner of Best Visual Effects at the Oscars that year?
Oh gosh,
what was it? 82.
Was it Raiders?
It wasn't Raiders. It was E.T.
Oh, of course it was.
Of course it was. Yeah.
Also nominated were Blade Runner and Poltergeist. All worthy nominations, but so is The Thing, surely, isn't it?
Oh, huge. Yeah. Over Poltergeist, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. After The Thing, Rob Bottin had made his mark on Hollywood, and his career grew from there. He worked on some big titles like Inner Space, RoboCop, Total Recall, Seven, Fight Club, Mission Impossible, and also Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So The Thing was a highly collaborative project. John Carpenter was at the steering wheel, of course, but without contributions by the likes of Bill Lancaster, Ennio Morricone, Dean Cundey, and maybe especially Rob Bottin, the film may not have become the classic it's now regarded as.
No.
Totally
Almost
agree.
certainly not.
Rob Bottin for the win. Give that boy an Oscar.
The end.
After the carnage of the defibrillator scene, nobody trusts anybody, and the end of The Thing sees it all come to a head in a couple of big sequences. We're going to talk about the climax of the movie where McCready takes on the creature by himself, but up first, it's a huge moment with the blood test scene.
Amazing.
Tense.
So, unable to take it anymore, McCready decides to take things into his own hands to root out the monster. Flamethrower in hand, he ties the other scientists to the couch and starts testing their blood to see who is who they say they are. One of the most famous moments in the film, the blood test, isn't it?
Oh man, this scene.
Here we go.
Scene.
Here we go.
John Carpenter, right? He's such a clever bastard. I kind of hate him because one thing I only noticed on a very, very recent viewing of this, right, is he tells you who the thing is before you even get to the test. Because you've got McCready giving that speech, explaining to the rest of the crew what he's going to do, and as he's doing that, Carpenter does that slow pan over the rest of them. And as McCready says, we're going to find out who's the thing. It is Palmer, who is dead center in frame, and he blinks. Because that pan continues, you don't think anything of it That should be the most obvious giveaway you've ever seen. But Carpenter's so confident he's got the audience where he wants them, and he's so cocky, he thinks, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to tell them who it is, and they're not even going to realise. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And the rest of this scene, I just find it excruciating because it's so patient and it's so detailed. There's no music. Again, his judgment of when to drop the music from scenes is absolutely incredible, particularly here. And it's the combination of the sounds you get instead. That howling wind outside, that low kind of hiss of the flamethrower, the nails down the blackboard scrape of the hot wire on the perspex, and then when it hits the blood and it just goes tss. I love that. That's such a great little touch. Yeah. And it just creates this palpable tension, particularly because McCready does it again and again as he tests them one by one, and it just continues to build. But Carpenter, he does the same trick that he does with the defibrillator scene where he distracts you, because you've got, again, all these character interactions and arguments. So Child's pointing out that McCready is a murderer because he shot Clark, and Clark has turned out to be human. Gary's saying the whole thing is pure nonsense, and the acting is so intense that when McCready goes, "We'll do you last," to Gary, you just so suck it in between that conflict that when Palmer's blood does jump out, it just catches you off guard. I mean, this scene to me, it's what cinema should be about. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I said earlier that the defibrillator scene is my favourite in the film, and it is because it's so outrageous. But this is the best scene in the film.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying anything profound saying that. It has a reputation of being the best scene in the film.
Yeah.
I know that when he read the script, this was the scene that convinced Carpenter he wanted to make the film, the blood test scene. It feels like the moment the film's been building to. The mistrust finally got the better of the scientists, and this is the point where they totally turn against each other. And Carpenter, this is his wheelhouse, this sort of thing. Suspense, tension building, and it all erupts when you're least expecting it to. We find out Palmer is the thing, and like you mentioned there, Matt, I love how Carpenter feeds us little clues. Some of the ones are, during the build-up, Palmer's the only crew member who doesn't seem agitated or upset. He's very calm throughout the whole thing. Also, when McCready has the flamethrower pointed at everybody, they're all terrified, but Palmer isn't even looking at McCready. He doesn't give a shit. And finally, Carpenter used an eye light, and he shone it into each of the actors' eyes to make sure they all had a gleam in their pupils, everybody except for Palmer. So the clues are all there. And that moment when McCready puts the heated wire into Palmer's blood and it jumps, Carpenter handles that brilliantly as well. Have you noticed what he does with Kurt Russell's hand just before the blood jumps out?
No.
So the effects device that they used to create the blood jumping was one long piece that included a fake hand holding the blood sample, and they pushed the thin blood sample strand up from that. So between shots it cuts from Kurt Russell's hand holding the sample to the fake hand holding the sample, but Carpenter cuts to the fake one 2 shots before the thing's blood jumps out, so we get used to the fake hand and don't notice it.
Right.
So it's even more of a shock when it jumps, which is really smart. But yeah, it's a great scene, the sort of thing Carpenter excels at, and one of his best ever scenes, surely.
Yeah, well, I mean, 100%. Like, fucking hell. Amazing. Like, you could put any scene on from any film and go, this is a complete sequence from start to finish. It's a film in itself. And that's where you get these really great sequences, and boy, does it fucking kick off. Like, when Palmer's revealed to me the thing, it's not just like, oh, well, yeah, I'm the thing. He's like, fucking right, I'm on the ceiling, I'm ripping windows to bits, it's all fucking crazy. And the thing I absolutely love about this is, like, they go out, set him on fire, right, he gets out the door, and then there's a dynamite, perfect shot, blows him up, and then, again, you're back again. It's cool, it's calm, it's blue, it's very much like, right, nothing's happened. And the fact that he's heating up that wire with a fucking flamethrower is so badass. It's just so intense. It's like there's nothing subtle about this scene whatsoever. And all the petri dishes are just like they're named, and all the names are like written really badly. They're just like scrolled on. There's nothing precise about it. Everything's just so unsettling. And this is just John Carpenter. 100%. This sequence, if you want to learn about how to shoot tension, if you want to learn how to shoot something that's going to completely surprise the audience towards the end of the film, this is an absolute blueprint. It's amazing.
The other thing that makes me laugh though is, like, for arguably the most intense moment of the film, there is something funny about this scene, because at the end, obviously McCready uses that flamethrower to destroy Palmer thing and then take our windows before he can turn. But one day Russell turned up on set with his head and his face covered in bandages, and he said to Carpenter, I was practicing with the flamethrower. I've been burned, man. Can't finish the scene. I'm burned. What am I going to do? Carpenter, like, already under loads of pressure, deadlines, budget, was just distraught. And he had no idea what he was going to do until Russell just whipped off the bandages because obviously he was okay. It was just like, ta-da!
What a dick. Yeah. Absolute dick move. How did he disguise all of that hair perfectly in bandages?
Yeah, if you watch the movie commentary with Carpenter and Russell, it's great. They're like best
Oh,
buds and just
fantastic.
rip it out of each other. Have a right laugh.
Yeah.
It's when again, Russell's just laughing at every single moment the thing turns into the thing and he's pissing himself. It's amazing. Yeah. It's well worth watching just for that.
Yeah.
So, pivotal scene in terms of the narrative, maybe the most acclaimed scene in the film. And do you guys agree that it's among John Carpenter's best ever sequences?
100%.
Easily.
If not the best.
Once Palmer is revealed as the Thing and McCready burns him to a crisp, we're careering towards the end of the movie. After finding out that Blair is also the Thing, Gary is killed, Knowles disappears, and McCready blows up the base, which takes the Thing with it. Or does it?
Or does it?
Probably the biggest action scene in the film, this climax, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's like, it's real, that kind of real introduction to that 80s action. You've got stuff kind of coming out from the floor and it's coming up, and I mean it's quite questionable, the blue screen used on this, when the Thing comes out of the floor and McCready's looking at it and you kind of go, for the first time, well, Bottin's obviously not involved here, that's fine, but you're that far into the film and you're that engrossed in it that you don't really give a shit, and it's just one thing after the other, and it's just, you know, all these explosions and all this real drama based on your lead character knows he's not going to survive, so you're kind of like with him. Okay, well, how are we going to go out? Let's make it as explosive as possible, and it works on every level. I love the fact that Blair's like building this spaceship and you know it's him.
Yeah.
And his hand goes into Gary's face just to shut him up and then drags him away.
Yeah,
reminds us that like that's the Maitlands of Beetlejuice. You know what he's
Yeah.
kind of drags him away. But then it puts loads more questions on. Well, do your clothes disappear when you become a Thing? Is he actually a Thing? Is he being used for something else? All of these just little subtle things are put into this huge action sequence at the end, and it's still subtle, and it's still intelligent, and it's still really Carpenter, and it's still engaging. It's fantastic.
It is. I said earlier that in this sequence, Carpenter's found a little wanting compared to other big directors putting together similar scenes. I mean, it's no End of Aliens or End of Jaws, but that's a very high bar, and it is still good.
Yeah.
I really like the moment they discover the almost completely flying saucer that the Blair Thing's been building. Adds another dimension to the pathology of the creature without telling us anything. Carpenter shows us, like any good director does. Obviously, McCready's kill line, "Yeah, fuck you too," is fantastic, especially delivered by Kurt Russell. Again, the practical effects work is fantastic. I know it took a team of 50 technicians to operate the Thing in this sequence. And I also know that originally Carpenter toyed with the idea of using stop motion animation to show the Thing emerging from the ground in this sequence.
Right.
You can see the footage of the shot online, and leaving it out was the right choice.
Well,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's
definitely.
I mean, it's top class stop motion animation work, but it doesn't fit here as it's not being used elsewhere. Watching it reminded me of Wallace and Gromit as much as anything else.
Just after some cheese.
And hey, I mean, Wallace and Gromit are great, but you don't want them showing up in the climax of your serious science fiction horror film, do you?
Yeah,
No,
just being
no,
really
don't.
like really uneasy. Just
Some-
more cheese, Gromit.
Some huge mechanical trousers.
The thing should have landed on the moon. It would have been fine.
Evil penguin just wanders into shot.
Yeah, I know that you say like this is no like Aliens or Jaws or whatever else, but you cannot take away how influential this is. I mean, watch the end of this and then watch the end of Predator.
Yeah.
It's the same as the end of Alien to the end of Aliens. It's the same. It's taken that whole demographic and just pushing it up. But Carpenter lays the groundwork here perfectly. It's fantastic as a final sequence.
I love how all the characters, the survivors who are left now, they just accept it's the point of no return. They know they're not getting out of there in any way, shape or form. Yeah, okay, that final kind of iteration of the Thing looks almost like a dinosaur. That is probably my least favourite, and like you say, John, that's because they had time against them because they did scrap this stop animation. The concept of it sounds amazing. It was going to be Blair basically on like a giant tentacle and he had dogs bursting out of his chest, but obviously it just wasn't going to work. Not Gromit, I hasten to add. I think it would also be good if Knowles did get a proper ending instead of just wandering off. And
Yeah.
again, I know that's down to time. There was a storyboard where you see him get grabbed by Blair, and as he's being dragged off by Blair, he manages to get hold of a piece of wood and he shoves at it in his own neck to kill himself.
Right.
Before Blair can turn him into the thing. So it's a shame we didn't see that, but I can understand why. But everything else about it is great. I think for all the amazingly complex effects work you got in the film, one of the most unnerving bits for me is what I imagine is one of the simplest shots, which is that bit of Blair's fingers just burrowing into Gary's face.
Yeah.
In that bit where you see him just drag him off by the skin of his face, that's just terrific. And even by the end, I like how McCready avoids the cliche of like a really cheesy one-liner as he throws the dynamite. Just that simple, "Fuck you too," and he's
Yes,
out
right.
of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not an overly protracted final confrontation. I don't think it needs to be for this film though.
I love the way that you see all the things that it's actually being turned into, but just
Yeah.
within this film. But I would like to have seen more. Imagine if like E.T. was in there. This film would be a hit. Like E.T.'s the thing. Like when he touches Elliot at the end, I'll always be right here. And he's like, "I'm inside you. You're infected." Would have been a smash.
I'd love that. That sounds amazing.
I know as well that all the explosions in this sequence were real, and in the moment where McCready throws the dynamite, it created a much bigger explosion than Kurt Russell was expecting. If you watch really closely, you can see him off to the side, like shielding himself. And when they began blowing up the camp, they had safety consultants on set who told Carpenter how big the explosions could be, but they warned him they may not be big enough to bring down the set. If they weren't, Carpenter said that they didn't really have a backup plan. In his words, "Fortunately, the explosions covered, and everything and all the hard work of the production team was completely destroyed."
I bet they were delighted with
I
that.
bet that was fucking ridiculous to be in that set, though, like
Yeah.
bringing it all down.
Well, that's the Norwegian camp is that camp, isn't it? After they destroyed it, they just reused it for the Norwegian camp.
Yeah.
Ah, really? Cool.
Yeah. They shot all that stuff last. See if
Oh,
they have to
excellent.
build 2 sets.
Nice.
Just blew the first one.
Yep. Genius.
Okay then, this is a big action spectacular climax, but it isn't the end of the film,
Nope.
is it?
No.
After Carpenter successfully destroyed the hard work of the production team, Childs emerges from the base. There's only him and McCready left, and they sit opposite one another, sharing McCready's whiskey. Neither trusts the other. McCready says, "Why don't we just wait here a while, see what happens?" And we fade to black. An ambiguous ending, and there's about 27,000 theories out there on what's going on. Westy, I think you came up with most of them. So, what do we take from the final scene of the thing?
The way that this is left, the way that it cuts to that wider shot, and you see the flames, and you hear the bump, 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 and you want something more. That's the genius of this film, is that you want something more, and you're going to have to create it, whether you like it or not. And there's very few films that will do that. Very few films that will leave you wanting more to the point where you're going to invent it yourself. And you've got Childs, or his breath isn't as prevalent as McCready's. He's breathing out, so obviously Childs is a thing. And then the theory I really love is that McCready hands him the Molotov cocktail. Like, he hands him a bottle full of petrol,
Yeah.
and Childs drinks it, and because he's a thing, he doesn't know the difference between petrol or alcohol or whatever. And then you
That
get
is a great theory.
You get that laugh from McCready. I like that. I like to have that theory as part of, like, yeah, that sits for me. That's good. I like that. And then if anyone else comes out, "Oh, that's fucking bullshit," I'll say, well, just leave us alone then, because I'm fine with that. But that's the genius of cinema, and that's the genius of John Carpenter, is that this came out in 1982, and you're still asking questions, you're still wondering what it means, you're still wondering where it goes, and it still makes sense. Like, it's not annoying, it's just fascinating. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, you're right. There's theory after theory out there on this ending. Even officially, there's contradictions. I've got a couple here. So, in Bill Lancaster's original screenplay, he wrote 2 endings. One ended with both McCready and Childs turning into the thing in front of each other, and the other ended with McCready and Childs being picked up by a rescue helicopter, and McCready saying which way to a hot meal, the insinuation being that neither of them was the thing.
Yeah.
Carpenter wanted an ambiguous ending, and it was actually Kurt Russell who came up with the idea of the 2 men just staring each other down when we fade to black.
Yeah.
And there was another ending that was actually shot by Carpenter but not used. In this, it's revealed that McCready survives and is picked up by the rescue team while Childs freezes to death and McCready then passes a blood test, so he's not the thing. I mean, for me, I don't think anybody anywhere knows any more about the end than we do, including John Carpenter.
No.
I think Carpenter wanted to make the point about paranoia and mistrust that it's very difficult to get rid of, and he does this by McCready and Childs being in the exact same position they were at the end of the film as they were an hour earlier. They don't trust each other.
Yeah.
For me, I don't think Carpenter left any clues. People have analysed the hell out of the scene, and lots of them do seem credible, but there's far too many contradictions because there's loads of plot holes in the film, like we talked about. I don't think we're meant to know. I don't think Carpenter knows. I think it's just ambiguous, and that's how Carpenter intended it to be.
Nobody knows like what it's supposed to be. It's just
Yeah.
great fun for it to end
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I think it's just incredible. I think just very much what you guys said. I can't think of another ending like this that is so open to interpretation and interpretations that will never be proven one way or the other, because it is completely up to you what you place importance on. You know, the fact that Child's breath isn't very visible, that bit just before they kind of make that final descent where Knowles does see him running outside and then the power goes off, which is still very suspicious, but it's no more than that. You know, what is the significance of the shredded clothes that you get throughout the film? Does that have anything to do with anything?
Yeah.
It's just incredible, and all these different theories do hold up. You know, we know that the thing can be different people or different things at the same time. So what happens to the Blair thing? Does it grab McCready in the tunnel on the way out after he blows up the main version of it? Who knows? I mean, for me, I think one that does sit with me really well is the fact that they're both human, but the irony is that they still can't trust each other. They're still consumed by paranoia and suspicion, and even in this moment of victory where okay, they're going to die, but at least they've destroyed the thing, they can't celebrate that victory. They're going to die still mistrusting each other, still paranoid. That's how I take it.
You never ever know what's gone on. You never ever know where you're going to be going. You've got to let go. And that's one of the big things that you get from it. It's like it's impossible to kind of detach yourself from this story, detach yourself from these facts, and just let it go. But just, if you can let the thing go, you can completely succeed in life.
You can let anything go.
You can let anything go. I still haven't let the thing go at all, and many things. But once I learn how to do it, then I'll know how to move forward and how to be successful in life. I think that's the whole point.
Well, to finish us off on this final scene, I've got a quote from one of the guys who was in it. Keith David, who plays Childs.
Nice.
At a horror convention in 2008, Keith David was asked if he ever knew who, at the end, was the thing. And he said, well, I don't know about Kurt, but it sure as hell wasn't me. So, there you have it. Done and dusted.
That's it, move on.
The end of the thing is pretty unforgettable. Fantastic filmmaking from Carpenter during the famous blood test. A great Kurt Russell one-liner as he blows up the beast. And the final scene, we've answered it. Either Childs is the thing, McCready is the thing, they're both a thing, or neither is the thing.
Well, move on. Get on with your life. I'm trying to.
Reception and awards.
The Thing is a classic nowadays, but how was it received on its release back in 1982? I think a lot of people listening might know the answer already.
Yeah.
Bloody terribly is how
Not
it was
well.
received. It actually opened on the same day as another famous science fiction movie that performed terribly on release. You know what that was?
Blade Runner?
Blade Runner. So on a production budget of $15 million, the thing grossed just $19.6 million. So when you take into account advertising, marketing and the below the line costs, it was a turkey and it lost money.
Yeah.
The thing wasn't just a flop with audiences though. All the critics hated it as well. So Roger Ebert gave the film 2.5 out of 4 and said, the thing is a great barf bag movie, but is it any good? No, for 2 reasons. The superficial characterizations and the implausible behaviour of the scientists. It's clear that John Carpenter concentrated on the special effects and allowed the story and people to become secondary.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Disgusting. Disgusting opinion.
A respected movie magazine, Cinefantastique, had the thing on its front cover and asked, is this the most hated movie of all time? And then in their review, they called it instant junk and the quintessential moron movie.
Wow.
Respected magazine, do you say there?
They were...
Not by me.
I'm happy to be a moron in that case.
Yeah.
And Starlog, who were probably the biggest science fiction magazine at the time, said, John Carpenter was never meant to direct science fiction horror movies. He's better suited to directing traffic accidents, train wrecks, and public floggings.
Wow. Okay, that's hard.
Even the director of The Thing from Another World got in on the act. He was called Christian Nyby, and he said, "If you want blood, go to the slaughterhouse." All in all, it's a terrific commercial for J&B whiskey.
Well, yeah, well, yours is a massive commercial for setting a big square man on fire, so fucking calm down.
Exactly. How many other films have people talk about Christian Nyby for?
After all of this, and this is pretty sad, after The Thing bombed so horrifically, Universal cancelled the multi-picture deal they'd signed with John Carpenter, so his career could have been very different if The Thing had been a success at the time.
Yeah.
As we now know, though, all's well that ends well, and following its release in home video and television broadcasts, The Thing garnered a cult following and critical re-evaluation, and over time, its reputation has grown and grown. It's now regarded as one of the great science fiction horror movies of all time, and an all-time classic.
Yeah,
Definitely is.
There was no Oscar recognition for The Thing at the time, as we mentioned, but nowadays on Rotten Tomatoes it has 85% from critics and 92% from audiences.
there we go.
Yep. So it should.
Doesn't
And
like it.
on IMDb it has a big 8.1 out of 10.
Huge.
So general opinion on The Thing has changed massively in the years since its release. And on this we have another question from Patreon. So Jamie Russell and John Rapach have both asked, why was the film so poorly received at the time?
Well, I think it's 1982. Ronald Reagan's just been elected president, and I think America was just going through a really particularly patriotic phase in their history. And I just don't think they wanted something as dark and as bleak and as downbeat as The Thing is. In this film, Americans are complete fuck-ups. The hero doesn't win at the end. And it's not the teaming up of Russell and Carpenter that audiences got the previous year and Escape from New York, so it's not what they're expecting. And I think in terms of critics, I think they just weren't ready for it. I think they took the special effects at face value and were just so like shocked and horrified by them and what Carpenter was showing them that they just weren't capable of looking beyond that and being able to appreciate everything that's going on beneath the surface in this film, being able to appreciate the writing, being able to appreciate what Carpenter's doing, what Cundy is doing, the music of Morricone. And ultimately it is famously true that this film was buried at the box office by E.T., and I think that's just the type of film and experience that audiences and critics wanted at the time. They wanted a happy time. They didn't want this.
I mean, if you watch this on face value, all you get is this ridiculous gore fest that makes absolutely no sense. And if you go to the cinema in 1982 and you've on a bang bang, you've just seen E.T. and you're going and see The Thing. Oh Jesus, you know that's really going to flip you out. But I mean, like Matt said, I think it's miles ahead of its time. And I think if this was to come out now in any cinema after lockdown, so The Thing on the big screen, people will flock to it. Because it's got that appeal now. It needed that real attention to detail that I think is so lost because the effects are so good and the effects are so out of this world and so fucking ridiculous that's all people fixate on. But if you give it a chance and if you can really study it and look at the mastery behind it and the filmmaking behind it, and like Matt said, the score or the acting and the paranoia and the claustrophobic element, it is all there. And if you watch that at home by yourself with the curtains drawn, it's an incredible film. But if you watch it in 1982 with your family, it ain't gonna hit home. So
to sum up this section then, basically everybody hated The Thing when it came out, and now everyone loves it.
There you
Pretty
go.
much.
Sequels and influence.
The Thing made no money on its release, so a sequel wasn't immediately forthcoming, but when the film's stature grew, so did studio interest in making a follow-up, and that's what happened 3 decades later. The Thing was released in 2011, directed by Matthijs van Heiningen Jr. and starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Joel Edgerton. It tells the story of what happened at the Norwegian camp before the 1982 movie starts. Like its predecessor, it was also poorly received, and on Rotten Tomatoes has 34% from critics and 42% from audiences. A sequel, a prequel, a remake and a reboot all in one is the 2011 The Thing. Have you fellas seen it?
I have, yeah. I quite enjoyed it.
Okay.
I thought it was really good. I thought it was it had all of them elements that you wanted to be answered. I mean, there's some really questionable bits in it. It's like, oh, the thing isn't as good as it was. That some of the effects aren't practical, which I would love to have seen. A lot of it's CGI in there, and it's quite jarring, but I think all of the character relationships work really well.
Right.
And it's lovely seeing that block of ice and realising how it's come out of that. And it's lovely seeing all of these other bits that kind of tie in to the original. It's nowhere near as good as The Thing, but it's a very, 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 very good reinterpretation of the story. And I think as a prequel, as it goes, if you love The Thing, it's well worth checking out, because I think it's just really, it's really nice little homage to the original.
Yeah. So tonight, The Thing 2011 and a kebab for me. How's that sound?
And then The Thing 1982.
Well, back to John Carpenter's The Thing, and as we've said, its stature grew enormously in the years after its release, not just with critics and audiences, but with other filmmakers as well. And Guillermo del Toro, Neil Blomkamp, J.J. Abrams and Quentin Tarantino have all cited The Thing as an influence on their work.
Yep.
So how do we think The Thing was influential? Where can we see it since 1982? Matt?
Well, I think the really obvious one is Rob Bottin's career. Obviously, arguably the only person who came out with this for any real credit at the time, and his career just shot off from here. And all those filmmakers you mentioned, you can definitely see the look of this film in some of Guillermo del Toro's films, the kind of fantastical creatures that he creates and how he does use practical effect as well. So very, very much on him. And then I just thought of some very specific ones. I'm sure you'll know this one, John, but there's an early X-Files episode that pretty much directly rips off The Thing. I think it's set in Canada, I think? Alaska, yep. And it's a scientific base, and there's like a parasitic worm that's taken them over and turned them violet. So that was like a massive homage to The Thing. And then, of course, I'm sure we're all going to mention this, but The Hateful Eight, which is basically Tarantino remaking The Thing as a Western.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I know that there's a tradition in British Antarctic research stations where they watch The Thing as part of their midwinter feast, which is held every June the 21st, which is pretty cool.
Brilliant.
Nice.
That's class.
Really grim. Like watching Apocalypse Now in Jarhead. Yeah, I mean, The Hateful Eight's the obvious one, isn't it? I mean, Kurt Russell in there, the snow, everything, it just kind of works, the paranoia, but I think any film that is, a close contact, multi-characterized version of paranoia is The Thing, since it came out in 82, whether people like it or not. It set the blueprint because it is so well done, without it being over the top, without it being hard to watch, without it being, oh, fucking hell, this is difficult. Like, for all the themes that it goes through, for everything. I think it's really, really brilliantly done, and I think it has been looked at and it has influenced a lot of people, and for whatever feelings that John Carpenter felt at the time when it came out in the cinema, it's totally redeemed itself since then and become an absolute classic. So the legacy of The Thing is beyond question. I think it still pervades popular culture, has been cited by big filmmaking names as a major influence. And why not head to the Antarctic next June the 21st to watch it with a team of British scientists, if that's your bag? Why not? Then get infected and bite the heads off.
All the right movies ranking.
This is the part of the show where we pull it all together and give you our summaries and scores out of 10 for the movie to see where we'll sit in the All the Right Movies leaderboard. So, Westy, do you want to start us off?
Yeah.
Your summary and score for The Thing, please.
Of course. Right, okay. I'm getting quite a bit of stick from friends of mine who are like, how do you do your whole like summary and score and what's that based on? Like, The Thing isn't like The Godfather, alright? You can't give that a 10. You can't give that a 10. But what I do is I do it on my own personal merit. I don't do it on anyone else's opinion or anyone else's thing. It's like it's how it's impacted me, how it's impacted what I've seen, or how it's driven me, or how influential it is towards what I believe cinema is important in that whole demographic. And I think The Thing for me sits perfectly in that whole shift of when I started to watch films and then really got them on my level. I was like, this works This is great. I'm not going to get tired of it. I don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks about it. And for that reason alone, it's so influential, and I'll always come back to it because it doesn't really seem like its themes have a limit. And like I've said before, when we've had lockdown, we've had quarantine, we've had all of these problems where we've all been claustrophobic, we've all been locked in, we don't know what the fuck's going on. This film has made perfect sense. It came out in 1992 and it still makes perfect sense now. I think all of the performances are absolutely brilliant, from 12 different people to all have their own personalities, and their interactions are incredible. I think the direction from Carpenter has never been better. I think Cundy absolutely shines without necessarily shining. I think Bottin at 22 years old fucking nails this to the role. And he should have got an Oscar for this, and everyone should know who he is because of this film. I think it's just such an incredibly enjoyable film, and for me, I'll go and see it on the big screen tomorrow morning at like 5:30 in the morning. I'll get up that early to go and see it. I don't care. It's absolutely fucking brilliant. It's absolutely fucking cinema, and it's so entertaining, and it's so much fun, and I'll watch it every time. And even when Matt turns 30, I'll buy it from him on Blu-ray. So it's a 10 for me.
Oof, the perfect 10. Well, as I've said throughout this episode, there's a lot of talented people work on the thing, and that shows. John Carpenter was a driving force, of course, and it feels like a Carpenter film in the best ways possible. His mastery of tension and horror is constantly on display here, and that's always a great sight when he's at his best. The cast are excellent, particularly Kurt Russell in the lead, of course, one of his best performances for me. The music from Ennio Morricone is fantastic. Not one of his very best maybe, but it doesn't have to be to still be superb and integral to the film. And of course the practical effects work, masterminded by Rob Bottin, is extraordinary stuff. Still looks great to this day. Some of the plot holes and lack of characterisation in the writing are a shame for me, but that representation of paranoia brought on by a lack of trust is one of the best examples I've ever seen in film. So it's not a perfect film for me, but it's one of the great science fiction horror films without doubt, and it's my favourite John Carpenter film. So in all, I'm going for 9 out of 10 for The Thing. And Matt, your summary and score for The Thing, please.
Disgusting. Leave it at that. You were above this, Matt. You were above this. This film is just so important to me. I genuinely wouldn't be the person that I am if it wasn't for this film.
Really?
Because, it just opened
honestly, John, he fucking loves this. You no idea.
Honestly,
okay.
It's opened
Change
my
your life.
far too young mind at the time as to what was possible, and it's a film that has never let me down since. I find it endlessly rewarding, and it reminds me when me, Luke and Westy did The Shining, and Westy was talking about that and how there's always something to get out of that film, and you just want to keep going back to it again and again. Now, this isn't as deep as The Shining, of course not. It doesn't have those levels to it, but it's got that paranoia, it's got those unanswered questions, it's got that ambiguity over events, over characters, and that's what keeps me coming back again and again and again, because I love a film that has the confidence to not give me the answers, to let me make my own mind up about it. Like, I don't mean this as a bad joke, but from its very first viewing, this film has been under my skin, and it will never leave. The performances, the effects, the music, the writing are some of the very best there's ever been in this genre, and some of those aspects still aren't appreciated for how good they really are, which is a shame.
Agreed. Yep.
And then bringing it all together, it's John Carpenter at the absolute peak of his talent. He wouldn't be as good as this again, which is another tragedy. So to say a film is the greatest film ever made, that warrants a discussion episode all on its own, and there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of films that could be included in that discussion. But what I can say is this film is pretty much my favourite film of all time. So it is, of course, a 7.5. No. No.
All right, PI.
Classic PI.
Classic PI. Stealing his best jokes. No, it's the easiest 10 I'll ever give in my life.
Yeah, knew that was coming.
Oof.
Easy. Feel bad for your 9 now, do you, John? Feel bad for your 9 now?
Yeah.
Fucking arsehole. You love sci-fi, you love horror.
That's why I put Matt last. I knew what was coming. As they always do, we also asked our Twitter followers to vote. Some of their comments. Adam Yates at @ad_Yates, patron and friend of the show, said, Might not be in my top 10, but it's undeniably a 10. The tension and sense of dread built in the first 40 minutes is absolutely killer. Great performances and special effects as well.
Yep.
I think we agree with that.
Yeti. Yep.
Leon Doggy Dog at Leon Doggy Dog said, imagine being so paranoid that you'll cut your own mates to check if they bleed alien.
Yeah.
Now imagine that same scenario, but you're really, really cold. Chilling. 9 out of 10.
Yeah, it's like lockdown with the heating off.
And Grumpy Git at Grumpy Git said,
Here we go.
5.
Well, lives up to his name.
Overrated. Sure, the effects were groundbreaking, but having a door assault on Precinct 13, Halloween, The Fog, and Escape from New York, the thing seemed very un-Carpenter-like, lacking in his trademark tension and scares.
What?
Has he not watched The Thing from Another World? Is that what he's watched?
Yeah, I think he's miles off. Should change his name to Optimistic Fella and then talk about different films.
Yeah, I think Grumpy Git is right. Lacking in tension, the thing. I mean, what?
What? Yeah. Miles
Disgusting.
Disgusting.
And altogether, our Twitter followers ranked the film as, what do you think?
Oh, God.
Well, a few unexpected low comments there, so 9.
I'm going to say like 8.
It was 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, 9.5. Lovely. Okay, good.
Excellent.
Great.
I'll
good,
take that.
Good.
Yep.
So that gives the thing 38.5 out of 40 in total. You can check our website to see where it sits in the leaderboard. And that's a wrap on the thing.
It is.
I think we're all very tired.
Yeah.
I don't trust any of you anymore.
Nope.
Come back in 2 weeks' time for Matt, Luke and PI bringing you the full making of story behind Martin Brest's Midnight Run.
Yes, please. Please do.
Oh, good fun,
Looking forward to that, Matt.
Yeah. Should be great.
To find out more about becoming a Patreon, accessing our archive, bonus episodes and supporting us in what we do, please visit patreon.com/alltherightmovies. You can subscribe, rate and review us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. And socially, you can keep up with All the Right Movies on Twitter. We are at @right_movies. On Instagram, we're at @all_the_right movies. And please find our movie group on Facebook to join in with all the movie chat and fun. And our website is alltherightmovies.com. So we're all off now to blood test the All the Right Movies gang and see who's who. So thanks for listening, everybody, and please come back again in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah. Please do, guys.
You want to say bye, Westy?
Yeah. Hi, Westy.